are live. Welcome to Tonight in America. I am your host, Dontarius Jones, and we have an exciting show tonight for you. Our feature story tonight, we're talking all about Venezuela again. Of course, with the seems like we're more and more close every day to a war with Venezuela. I've spoke about this before. I spoke about this many times before, and it seems like it's not going to get easier on my job right now. So yes, we're going to speak about it right now. We apparently are very close to a impending war right now with Venezuela. We're also going to be talking about a fraudulent case that's going on against Tim Walz, who you might recognize, who ran with Kamala Harris last year during her candidacy for president. And Tim Walz was her vice president running VP. As you may know, I mean, like there is a big news coming out of today that was reported today about a fraud case that happened, federal fraud, welfare fraud involving Tim Walz, who might be in some serious trouble right now. Might be facing some jail time. Might have to be paying back all the money that apparently he has embezzled from a bunch of Americans to give to Somalians. It's funny because like you look at Minnesota, it's completely overrun with Somalians right now. Like I think Somalians are like it's the largest Somalian population in Minnesota. You type in on Google right now, and Google will tell you right now where is the largest population of Somalians in America. It's in Minnesota. So pretty much Ihan Omar and all her clans of Somalians that are residing in America, they all live in some Minnesota, talking crap about America, telling us how we need to act in our own country, bossing us around, whatever, you know. And like, bitch, if you're gonna tell us how we need to be in our country, maybe you should go back to Somalia and go fix Somalia. I don't know why you want to live here if you talk so much shit about America and you dislike America. Why are you even living here? So, but of course, we're going to be talking about that in our second story tonight. In our first story, we're going to be covering. I missed to cover this because I was away for a minute. We're going to be talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene's step down from Congress. We're going to cover that. We're going to get some reactions from everyone who talks about it because it's all over the ballpark. And we're gonna get Trump's pretty much all his true social posts about him bashing Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling her a trailer, along with Thomas Massey, you know, Rand Paul. You know, Trump is he's not a happy camper with Marjorie, and I'm pretty sure he's like one of the ones that's like excited that she's stepping down pretty much from her spot in Congress because like yeah, she's not in a good standing right now with the Trump administration because like it, people can look at it as that because like she's been forced out in some cases, but in other cases, especially the guy that I have speaking last that talks about Marjorie because he knows her more than anything. Of course, I'm speaking about Nick Fuentes, who invited Marjorie Taylor Greene to AFPAC, who spoke at his conference. And then the next day afterwards, she just ghosted him. She fired one of his guys in her office because she found out that a Agrippa was working for her thanks to Malo Yiannopoulos. He told Marjorie that Agrippa was working for her, and of course she fired him as a response. And then ever since then, I mean, like for the next couple of years or so since that conference took place, she's pretend like the whole stuff between Israel, you know, controlling our politics, running our government, pretend like it's never happened. And now all of a sudden this year she's come around to all of this stuff. She's come around to it all of a sudden. And now, you know, of course, everyone on this side of the aisle is welcome her in because like, hey, she's another truth teller. She's fighting against the truth. She's trying to get this cabal that's controlling our government out of our government and really fight for our actual sovereignty as a constitutional republic or a democracy, whichever one you want to describe America. Either one would be right because we were founded as a constitutional republic and then we became a democracy as time goes on. But the point of what I'm trying to say is when it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene is that her views, it just seems like to me that she's not the brightest when it comes to this stuff. And secondly speaking, I don't even believe that she really sincere about actually coming to our side and being a actual truth teller in some cases. I just think it's just financially incentivized to be that way because if anything, you look at Marjorie, she's been more accepted, not a little bit on the far right, but mostly a lot on the far left. And then you're gonna see also a tweet that she had an interaction between someone who was encouraging her to fight on, and then you're seeing a little bit of like, gotta say it, a feminist come out inside of her. So, but anyways, I want to remind you to smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know how you like about tonight's show. Of course, this is going to be this today is the second is going to be dropped later on today at 8 p.m. tonight. Of course, I'm recording this at 2:44 a.m. Stayed up to do this for you guys right quick. So we got three news pack show, three headlines to cover. I was trying to think about I was going to add a fourth, but I think three will be good enough for right now. And then also my next record. So we're going to be covering. I'm going to be reacting to Piers Morgan's Jubilee debate. One Piers Morgan versus 20 woke liberals. That's going to be an interesting one. One regular liberal versus 20 woke liberals. And then also we're going to react to the documentary by Tyler Oliver, where he goes to India and he takes a tour and he gets festive into their native festives, where they have a annual festival where they're throwing shit at each other. Basically, I'm not even joking when I say this. So that one's gonna be my next recording. I'm gonna be reacting to those two things, of course. And then if there's some news, some big major breaking news or whatever, I'll fit it in there too as well on stream. But of course, those are what we're gonna be reacting to in the next show. So this one right here is news as you know, business as usual, news coverages. You know, tomorrow next one's gonna be a little bit funner. Gonna be reacting to some debates. Well, one debate and basically kind of like a journalist documentary. So, but let's go ahead and jump on in. So, as you can see up here, so we're covering Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation from Congress. So let's go ahead and listen to what she has to say, and then we're gonna get the feel of what everyone else feels about this afterwards. We're gonna get an all-around feel about this. Then we're gonna get Trump's reaction, then we're gonna get Nick's reaction last, because what he has to say is very, very, very important. Because, like, honestly speaking, because he sees through what Marjorie is, quite frankly, you know. And Laura Loomer, I got her tweet up here too as well. So she obviously she's gleeful in a different way, comparatively. So,
hi everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C. and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties, election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same. No matter which way the political pendulum swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher.
she's damn sure taking a populist position, and she sounded like this too when she first made an appearance on the Young Turks show, where she sounds like she was moving more towards like establishment, moderate Republican Congresswoman to become a populist. And now that she's gained this new fame and glory that she's, basically come across because of appearing on shows like The View, oddly enough, and Bill Maher, where she was just sitting there while they would just sit there and just trash Trump. And that's exactly the root of why Trump is mad. It's because like Marjorie's just sitting there while she's around basically all the enemies that were literally just sitting up there and just trashing his name, and she didn't do not one thing to defend him. And that's also kind of in part why Trump did not endorse her for her re-election position, did not try to endorse her to run again, basically, and that was kind of already signs right there that she was going to drop out of Congress. I had to say it, but that was kind of the early signs right there because Trump did not give a re-endorsement of her, and he shit talked her in the same True Social post. We're gonna react to that too as well. But let's go ahead and jump back in.
Corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts. American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interests. And the spending power of the dollar continues to decline. The average American family can no longer survive on a single breadwinner's income, as both parents have to work in order to simply survive. And today, many in my children's generation feel hopeless for their future and don't think they will ever realize the American dream. And that breaks my heart. I ran for Congress in 2020 and have fought every single day believing that Make America Great Again meant America first. I have one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, defending the First Amendment, Second Amendment, unborn baby.
Key point to realize, she said conservative point. Man means conservative man. And I want you to remember that right now for later, because there's going to be a tweet that we're going to react to from Marjorie Taylor Greene, and somebody was trying to convince her to stay in. Like I mentioned it earlier, she gave the usual feminist talking points. And we're going to reread the tweet just to give you a clear view of what I'm talking about.
Because I believe God creates life at conception, and I love to fight for the little guy. Strong, safe borders, I have fought hard for that. I've fought against COVID tyrannical insanity and mandated mass vaccinations, and I've never voted to fund foreign wars with your hard-earned tax dollars. However, with almost 1 year into our majority, the legislature has been mostly sidelined. We endured an 8-week shutdown, wrongly, resulting in the House not working for the entire time, and we are entering campaign season, which means all courage leaves and only safe campaign re-election mode is turned on in the House of Representatives. During the longest shutdown in our nation's history, I raged against my own speaker and my own party for refusing to proactively work diligently to pass the plan to save Americans' health care and protect Americans from outrageous, overpriced, and unaffordable health insurance policies. The House should have been in session working every day to fix this disaster. But instead, America was force-fed disgusting political drama once again from both sides of the aisle on television every single day. My bills, which reflect many of President Trump's executive orders, like calling for a new census counting Americans only to draw new districts, making English the official language of the U.S., making it a felony to medically trans a minor, and other bills like eliminating capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home and eliminating H-1B visas they all sit collecting dust. That's how it is for most members of Congress bills. The Speaker never brings them to the floor for a vote. Many common Americans are no longer easily convinced by paid political propaganda spokespersons and consultants on TV and paid shills on social media obediently serving with cult-like conviction to force others to swallow the political party talking points. Because they know how much credit card debt they have, they know how much their bills have gone up over the past 5 years, they actually do their own grocery shopping and no food costs too much, their rent has increasingly gone up and up, they have been outbid by corporate asset managers too many times when they put in an offer to buy a house, they have been laid off after being forced to train their visa-holding replacement. The college degree they were told to earn only left them in debt with no big six-figure salary. They see more homeless people than ever on their own community streets. They can't afford health insurance or practically any insurance, and they just aren't stupid. These are the people I represent and love because that is who all of my family and friends are, common Americans. I've been blessed to represent the 14th District of Georgia for 5 years. The district is filled with some of the most wonderful, kind-hearted, God-fearing, patriotic, hardworking people you will ever meet. Good, regular, common Americans. I've worked hard to bring taxpayer dollars back home to help district needs. I impeached Biden's Secretary of Homeland after watching my constituents die as he facilitated dangerous open border invasion into America. And I led the effort to defund hard left politically biased NPR and PBS and the corrupt USAID, and I did that as chair of the DOJ subcommittee. I have fought harder than almost any other elected Republican to elect Donald Trump and Republicans to power. I traveled the country for years. I spent millions of my own money. I missed precious time with my family that I can never get back. And I showed up in places like outside the New York courthouse in Collect Pond Park against a raging leftist mob as Trump faced Democrat lawfare. Meanwhile, most of the establishment Republicans who secretly hate him and who stabbed him in the back and never defended him against anything have all been welcomed in right after the election. And I will never forget the day I had to leave my mother's side as my father had brain surgery to remove cancerous tumors in order to fly to Washington, D.C. to defend President Trump and vote no against the Democrats' second impeachment in 2021. My poor father and my poor mother, it was way too much for all of us. Through it all, I never changed or went back on my campaign promises and only disagreed in a few areas, like my stance against H-1Bs replacing American jobs, AI state moratoriums, debt for life 50-year mortgage scams, standing strongly against all involvement in foreign wars, and demanding the release of the Epstein files. Other than that, my voting record has been solidly with my party and the president. Loyalty should be a two-way street, and we should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interests because our job title is literally representative. America first should mean America first and only Americans first, with no other foreign country ever being attached to America first in our halls of government. Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for. However, while yes, hurtful, my heart remains filled with joy, my life is filled with happiness, and my true convictions remain unchanged because my self-worth is not defined by a man, but instead by God, who created everything in existence. You see, I have never valued power, titles, or attention in spite of all the wrong assumptions about me. I do not cling to those things because they are meaningless and empty traps that hold too many people in Washington. I believe in term limits and do not think Congress should be a lifelong career or an assisted living facility. My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it makes to the American people and put America first. And I have fought against Democrats' damaging policies like the Green New Deal, wide open, deadly, unsafe border policies, and the trans agenda on children and against women. With that has brought years of nonstop, never-ending personal attacks, death threats, lawfare, ridiculous slander and lies about me that most people could never withstand even for a single day. It has been unfair and wrong, not only to me, but especially to my family, but it's been wrong to my district as well. I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never, ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played. When common American people realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country, and instead the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. Until then, I'm going back to the people that I love, to live my life to the fullest as I always have, and I look forward to a new path ahead. I'll be resigning from office with my last day being January 5th, 2026, and I look forward to seeing many of you again sometime in the future. May God bless you all, and may God bless America.
All right, so there's a lot to dissect in that, but I mean, yeah, she's walking away. Basically speaking, you can call it cowardice, you can call it, you know, she obviously was scared for her life, whatever. People can look at this in many different ways. You know, this is why, like, but then you read the tweet that she wrote to a guy, Cernovich, I believe his name was, and then you was like, yeah. She kind of didn't have a heart into this all the way. So no knock to her. I mean, she's a woman. So politics is for men. It takes men to stay in here and fight the fight and to win the war, because we are in war. You know, this is a psychological warfare. This is a religious, demonic, you know, war we're in. Spiritual warfare, as they call it. So, no knock to her. But I just feel like her heart was never really into doing this 100% anyways in the first place. So, let's get some reactions a little bit. You know, Antunes, I believe his next is Marjorie Green is resigning despite a 95% voting record with her party. Trump called her a traitor for being America first. The Israel lobby destroys everyone who stands against it, with the complicity of the President of the United States. America is an occupied country. Yeah, very true. Nick Sorter, major breaking, Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene announcing resignation. All right, effective January 5th, 2026. And as you can see right here, Laura Loomer, of course, she has a lot to fucking say. Marjorie Trader Greene just resigned from Congress, and the performance was exactly what you expect. 10 minutes of scripted poor me theatrics while pretending she's some fearless outsider being pushed aside. For years, she pretended to be a Trump loyalist while trash talking him behind the scenes and melting down every time she didn't get what she wanted. Now she's quitting Congress and trying to spin it as some noble stand for the common American. She even read her resignation off a teleprompter. When the moment finally came to speak from the heart, she couldn't do it. You gotta understand something about this. Laura Loomer has a major hard on for anyone that's quote unquote disloyal to Trump. But there's one thing you got to remember. If Trump did not support Israel, would Laura Loomer stand with him the way that she does right now? You got to really ask that question right now. Would Laura Loomer stand with the Trump administration the way she does right now if Trump did not support Israel? If he didn't support Israel at all and say, I don't support Israel, I don't support what they're doing, I don't support the genocide that they're committing, Laura Loomer probably would have pulled her support of Trump immediately. And that's just a fact. So let's go ahead and watch this video. It's 2 minutes, 42 seconds.
Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, former Trump loyalist, says she's resigning from Congress. Let's go ahead and play the clip. It's about 10 minutes long, but of course, you know, she has to go on this whole emotional spiel tirade. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Yo, her face is busted, bro. Fuck, bro. Every time I see Laura Loomer, man, yo, I swear, That surgeon who did that to her face, bro, he needs to be jailed. That's insane that she let that happen to her face. Holy crap.
I fought so hard, and now I'm done. And I'm not coming back unless you come and you tell me that I'm the best woman in the world. I'm the prettiest woman in the world, and I'm the only woman that you have eyes for. Let's play the clip.
Hi, everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C., and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties, election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same. No matter which way the political pendulum swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher, corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts, American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interest. And the spending power of the dollar continues to decline. The average American family can no longer survive on a single breadwinner's income, as both parents have to work in order to simply survive. Hopeless. And they believe unborn babies because
All right, let's pause. She's reading from a script. I realized from my time in Congress, it's like she's not even looking up. Whoever did this resignation speech could have at least like leveled her eyes with the teleprompter. Since we all know this is all scripted anyway. It's all fake. She's reading from a script. So obviously this is all...
Man, I can't help it but looking at Laura Loomer's face, bro. Look, that's just not a real face, bro. That looks just CGI as fuck, bro. I swear, if you see that in person, you would just be freaked out by how demonic that face looks, bro. Holy shit, bro. I can't stop looking at her face, man. It's not even mesmerizing. It's not even that mesmerizing. It's just like grotesque. My God, bro. Who's her surgeon? This guy needs to be jailed for what he did to Laura Loomer's face. How dare this piece of shit do this to Laura Loomer's face? You know, oddly enough, I paused and look at the bottom, truthsocial.com/Laura Loomer. Bro, talk about some almost drop her knees, open her mouth wide, and just put it all in my mouth right now. Cause bruh, she is swallowing that cock, bro. I swear. Nick said this once about Laura Loomer. She would do anything for money, and just proven right. She would do literally anything for money.
Played out. You have to ask yourself, like, how long has she been working on this script? And why is it that she couldn't just speak from the heart? Why does she have to write a script?
Yeah, Laura Loomer's being retarded. Go get to this article by Axios right here. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning from Congress. We'll read a little bit of it. Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning from Congress after her split with President Trump. The Georgia Republican announced in a post on Friday why it matters. Greene was one of Trump's earliest allies and among his most loyal supporters in Congress, but she broke with the Republicans over health care costs and foreign policy, and her relationship with Trump dissolved over her push to release the Epstein files. In some cases, I could say that. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine are replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military, industrial, war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and placed as well, Greene said in a video posted on X. Greene was first elected to Congress in 2020, representing Georgia's 14th district. Her last day in office will be January 5th, 2026. So she was only in the office for like what, close to 6 years, pretty much. So she wasn't even in there for that long. But let's go ahead and cover some. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene responded to Cernovich, who says you need to serve out. So let's go down right here and click on his post. You need to serve out your full term, as he told Marjorie Taylor Greene. All right. And then here's her right here responding back to Cernovich. Oh, I haven't suffered enough for you while you post all day behind a screen. Do I have to stay until I'm assassinated like our friend Charlie Kirk? Would that be good enough for you then? Shit posting on the internet all day isn't fighting. Get off your ass and run for Congress. I fought harder than anyone in the real arena, not social media. Put down your little pebbles and put your money where your mouth is. Wagging her finger like this. She's wagging her finger. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's wagging her finger. You know, this post right here got it rubbed me a little wrong way when I was reading this, because this just sounds like a nagging bitch who's just trying to be like, trying to just, she's griping, she's complaining that she's trying to tell men what to do. And also, let me pull up the hold on just a moment, because she quote tweeted this from her a government official X page, and then she further extrapolated her point even more. Okay, so here we go. Typical of Republican men telling a woman to shut up, get back in the kitchen, and fix me something to eat. That's not all what he said. Fuck you in the sweetest, most southern draw. I can. Bruh, reading this is just like insane, man. I have been telling, I'll read this longer part right here, and then I'm going to give my take afterwards. I have been trying to tell all you men that our kitchen pantry is empty with spider webs. Our house has been ransacked. The windows and doors are broken and busted, and the greedy rich bastards have twisted your minds into a sick state that you all continue in the two-party toxic political system that acts like college football playoffs, yet is burying you and your children and their children and their children in a pine box in a shallow grave. Get off your ass and fix your own damn food. Clean up the kitchen when you're done. Marjorie. 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 We gotta have a discussion right now. Please have a seat right now. Let's talk. Let's have like a little talk to talk right quick. Let's have a little heart to heart. So this X post right here, it reeks of pure feminist. It reeks of feminism. You know how they always tell you like they don't like to be told what to do by men? They're always like, oh, a man is always telling me what to do this, always telling me what to do that. How about you do it? How about you do this? How about you do that? How about you do what I say you need to do? Reading this is just like you can tell what she's trying to get off right now, and just she's like expressing this innate feminist nature that's come out. In some cases, I always thought Marjorie was a feminist. In some cases, I just never looked at her to tell like any woman that just takes this leadership role, especially when it comes to fighting against the Zionists, you know, Jews. It's always they always like spiritually manifest a feminist. As a matter of fact, not even call it we're not even call it spiritually manifest. They bring out their true nature. Because the run in politics, for the most part, we all know that any woman that's involved in like politics that has like a Congress seat, Senate seat, you know, a district, whatever, vice presidency, doesn't matter. They all have this innate feminist inside of them, whether it be right, whether it be left. They all have feminism inside of them. Women involved in politics or the covert feminists, it doesn't matter which side you look at it. They're all bad, quite frankly. The best woman involved in politics is the woman's at home and asks her husband when he gets home from running the country and making sure everything is good and clean, writing bills, making laws, prosecuting people, or better yet, he's a law enforcement and he's arresting people. That's the best women that are involved in politics. The housewives with the children that are at home, not Marjorie Taylor Greene out here wagging her finger, telling a man to shut up, Tell the man to shut the fuck up, fuck you, in the most southern way possible, whatever the fuck that means, and tell you to get off your ass and fix your own damn food. It goes to show you, it's like wow. That's who she really is underneath. That's really who she is. You know, you look at a woman like this, you know, something funny. You got like a lot of people in the comment section that are turning against her, calling her woke. You know, even Laura Loomer's roasting her. Look at this. Even I gotta agree with Laura Loomer, but Laura Loomer's just as much more of a feminist than anything. She's a Jewish feminist, so it doesn't make much of a difference. So she crashes out. She has this intense burnout on Cernovich, just completely going, just ape shit crazy, no pun intended, on Cernovich, and then she doubles down even more, basically just kind of going this like anti-man tirade afterwards, like typical Republican men who voted for her, by the way. So let's not forget that she is in the Republican Party. So who votes mostly in the Republican Party is men, for the most part. Hell, today women are voting more liberal than ever. So this is very, very hilarious coming from her. Very hilarious. So, but let's go on and get Trump's reaction to all this right now. So, as we can see, pulled up over here, this is Trump's True Social account. So, as you can see, all the posts, I just typed in Marjorie and then it's brought up her name everywhere. Trump is going into Marjorie almost like a lot in November. Literally calling her a traitor, but he's tweet. I think he's posted about True Social about Marjorie a lot. Like this is the last time I think he's posted something positive about her on True Social. Said thank you, Marjorie. This was in November 18th, 2022. Now recently, this is Trump's right here. Wrote this long ass paragraph. I'll just read the first couple a little bit of it at the top. I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements of our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no man and women's sports, or transgender for everyone, and the DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, all that's debatable, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, and as opposed to being the laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting, investing in the U.S., and having that's my place, created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see is wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. It seemed to, I'll finish reading the whole rest of it. Seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator, or governor. She was at 12% and didn't have a chance, unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. She has told many people that she is upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore, but with 219 congressmen and women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they too are fed up with her and her antics. And if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View. I got that video too of her doing The View, so we're gonna watch that too as well. With their low IQ Republican hating anchors, thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. I love how he just puts that on almost every one of his True Social posts. Make America great. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. He always posts that at every end of all his True Social posts. It's crazy, but it's funny. It's Trump. So that was Trump pulling his support from her, right there. All these posts, he just going in on her, calling her a lightweight congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Brown. Green grass turns brown when it gets to. That's pretty funny. Yo, Wacky Marjorie Trader, bro. Marjorie Trader Brigade is a disgrace to our great Republican Party. Bro, he's going in on her, bro. It's crazy. Republican Party has never been so united as it is right now, other than Rand Paul Jr., Massey, Marjorie Trader Brown, a couple of other lowlights. Other than that, the fact they want the election, deodorant. Did I say deodorant? Uterine filibuster terminated. The Dems were do it in the first minute of the first chance. Yeah, sorry about that. I was stuttering because I was trying not to laugh. But yeah, as you can see, Trump is going in on all of them. Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like he's just like he does not like them because like we got two libertarians who are always going to be kind of opposing in some ways to any of what Trump's doing for the most part because like libertarians always have this like individualist mindset. You know, in some cases I am an individualist because like, you know, I'm mixed race, you know, I don't agree with the black victim mindset. I roast black people very hard. You know, I don't agree with liberalism. It's a sickness, especially wokeism. You know, some cases I'm far right, very, and you know, I got populist views myself, of course. So I differ from like a traditional conservative in some cases. But at the same time, I look at the libertarians, they're always going to be in some cases opposed to what Trump's doing for the most part. Dave Smith did call for Trump to be impeached. And that was after the, you know, the bombing of Iran and stuff like that. So he called for Trump to be impeached and stuff. And I don't agree with impeaching Trump at all. It's not going to happen anyways, regardless of it, even if that's the case or not. So, but yeah, but to get back to the point of the matter is that's why Trump is mad at Marjorie because he feels like she just went on to all these adversary shows that have always talked shit about him, like Bill Maher, The View, didn't push back at all what they're saying, and they're just sitting there constantly bashing him in front of them, and she's just sitting there just like being happy-go-lucky, smiling, and just like nodding her head, laughing at some of their stupid jokes or whatever. You know, even I don't have to agree with all of Trump's doing foreign policy wise, whatever. I still love Trump. I may have didn't vote, but I still love him, of course. But to sit here and not defend him, at least try to push back on some stupid shit they said. Come on, Marjorie. It does make it look like you're playing for the other side right now, and you're giving into this new found fame that you've come across at finding. So, so we're gonna get into the Young Turks. We're gonna get some reactions right now. Well, actually, before we get to reactions, let's go and watch her appearances on The View and Bill Maher. Also, I'm gonna turn my camera off so I can get up and turn my air off. I'm very fucking cold right now.
Today marks two historical milestones. We have officially tied the record for the longest U.S. government shutdown ever. And for the very first time on The View, we are joined by someone you might be surprised to see here. Please welcome Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Welcome to The View.
Thank you for having me.
It's you, Joy.
Oh, boy. I was so taken by your suit.
Gotta play at 1.5. We got a lot of other stuff to cover, so let's try to get through this.
So Trump is reportedly calling his MAGA cronies because they say that you're slamming Republicans too much. Well, you're taking my job. You're slamming Republicans a lot on topics like healthcare, the Epstein file.
Let me give you guys a clear explanation about The View. An all-female run, you know, hosted anchor show by a bunch of dumb bitches that live in California, godforsaken land, that sit there and complain about what Republicans do, complain about what conservatives do. A bunch of feminist bitches, Whoopi Goldberg's ugly ass up there talking about I think she said something about she got with a young guy, had sex with her before. I'm like, bro, anyone that bears their face inside of Whoopi Goldberg, bro, that guy has to be some form of retarded. Bro, this want to sleep with that is kind of, bro, that's insane. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's kind of insane. But yeah, this is the View, this talking show. And then, you know, something funny, Valuetainment actually started their own version of The View. which in some cases is good. But I mean, I'm not really into female-led shows because like I don't watch female-led podcasts. Like I'll tune into Candace Owens here and there, not not to come off as hypocritical, but you know, she kind of losing me a little bit with all this talk of the French president and stuff. That's just kind of like, bro, this is Looney Tunes. Like, what the fuck are we talking about right now? Like, she's completely kind of losing her mind a little bit lately. Like, Candace, please, come home. You know. But yeah, that's to just give you guys a clear explanation what the view is. If you already don't know it is, but I'm pretty sure you guys do know because this shit doesn't really get no fucking views at all. Quite frankly, like, who the fuck watches this shit, man? These fucking old hacks and stuff. I think my mom watches them still because my mom's liberal, of course.
We know he's still your favorite president. I mean, Truman is mine. I dated him. But
I did not date Donald Trump, but I do love him.
you do love him. You do love him. Yeah.
Yes, I
All
do.
right. Well, whatever. So when was the last time you spoke to him? And what's with the tension between the two of you? Now, you may love him, but he may not love you back right now.
Well, that's okay. I mean, Donald Trump, he usually yells at everybody, so we're all used to it. But he's the president of the United States. And here's something you all may not know about me. I think a lot of people on the left are learning that when I ran for Congress in 2020, I ran criticizing Republicans and Democrats equally because I come from a working class family, ran a construction company for over 20 years. And I feel like the government has failed all of us. And it purely disgusts me. It really does. And I represent a district that is rural manufacturing district, blue collar workers, and people have been crushed by decades of failure in Washington, D.C. And so I have no problem pointing fingers at everyone. And the worst thing that I just can't get over is we're not working right now. And I put that criticism directly on the Speaker of the House. And we should be at work. All the people sitting in this audience, they go to work every day. People at home watching the show, they go to work every day. Ladies, you go to work every day. The people on your set. And it is an embarrassment to me that we're not in session.
And getting paid.
I'm not taking a paycheck.
Good for you. Exactly.
I'm not taking a paycheck.
I think you're one of the only ones. Well, like the air
Don't know the
controllers.
list. I think that should
Yeah.
be a public list.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair because our paychecks are taxpayer funded.
Correct.
However, I voted to fund the federal government on September 18th. I want all federal employees to be paid. I want all the programs to be funded. And I think that is our job, all of us together, Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. And I'll look, I'm with women, so I feel very comfortable saying this. I'm really tired of the pissing contest in Washington, D.C. between the men. I really am.
Women, it's so nice to have you. And I want to show you,
Bruh.
Bill Maher, and I think you've been extremely eloquent in this
Bruh.
shutdown and talking about the issue of Obamacare subsidies. I'm a Republican too. We don't agree on everything, but we both agree we have to extend these subsidies at least for a year because you just can't pull the rug out from under people who are going to see their premiums skyrocket. You talked about your own family, how you'd be impacted, but I imagine many of the 700,000 constituents you represent. So what are you hearing from your constituents on this issue, and how do you see this shutdown ending?
My phone in my office, my district office in Washington, is ringing off the hook every single day. People are beyond outraged and they're terrified, but this has been going on for a long time. Democrats voted for the ACA in 2010. It went into effect in 2014. That was the year that we saw our health insurance policy for a family of five go from $800 a month to $2,400 a month. And I'll say this, we also watch health insurance companies drop out of the market and healthcare costs have risen and risen and risen and risen. But I'm going to pick on Republicans. Republicans never fixed it. And then the ACA tax credits were passed in 2021, and there was a sunset date of the end of this year, and Republicans never made a plan for that. And I have been I yelled at Mike Johnson last week on our GOP conference call. By the way, I'm missing the call today. It's going on right now. And I hope that Mike Johnson is finally giving a single health care policy because the country deserves it, and it shouldn't be a secret. And I shouldn't have to go into a skiff to go find our Republican health insurance plan.
Maybe there is
Honestly,
no plan.
you know what? You want to know something? That, I believe, is the truth. There's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of bills, but there's no consensus. And I think that's a failure. I do.
Well, I want to talk about MAGA voters who believed that the president made promises like lowering grocery prices on day one. Right now, grocery prices, inflation is up, soybean and cattle farmers are on the verge of bankruptcy. Millions have lost their food stamps and are about to lose their health care, while we're watching $40 billion to bail out Argentina. What is going on?
I don't know. I am so America first. I feel like I live it and breathe it. And that's my district. And that's what people want. They're so tired of their hard-earned tax dollars being sent overseas to foreign wars and foreign aid and foreign causes, while life in America just becomes more and more unaffordable. We want this money invested at home for our infrastructure, for programs, for our people, and most importantly, for my children's generation and their children and their children and generations to come. And I have to say, that's what I've campaigned on the entire time. Everybody's like, Marjorie Taylor Greene has changed. And I'm like, oh no, nothing has changed about me. I am staying absolutely 100% true to the people.
That's cap, actually. That's very cap. She has changed her views over the year. She did not have these views a year ago. Not at all. So, that's very cap of what she is. I mean, like, she's just playing a caricature, pretty much. She's just like, she's flipped one. She's going where she's feeling more incentivized. Like, look, think about this. She's going to View. And she says she felt more comfortable being around a bunch of women because she says the men in Washington are having a dick measuring contest. You can't tell me that's not feminist coded right there, bro.
That voted for me and true to my district. And I am so angry when I drive around my district to all these beautiful little rural small towns. And there's manufacturing plants that are crumbling from decades of lost industry, small businesses that got shuttered during COVID lockdowns and COVID shutdowns. And you want to know something else, Whoopi? So many veterans that went over and had to fight in some war that really had nothing to do with where they were from or their hometown, and their lives and families' lives have been so affected. So for me, I am unapologetically America first, and I'll do anything I can to work hard to save
Maybe you
this
should become
country.
a Democrat, Marjorie.
No, I'm not a Democrat. You want to know something? I'll say this. I think both parties have failed.
Yeah.
Both parties have
This
failed.
is worse.
Yeah.
He's worse. Sorry, you know that.
No,
He's
I
still your favorite president. He goes against everything you just said.
I like Donald
bitch,
Trump. I
shut
fought for him
up.
to win. I'm very thankful for the secure border. I'm friends with Laken Riley's mother. And we saw over 12, I serve on Homeland Security, over 12 million people came across our border, over 2 million gotaways. These are terrorists, cartels, all kinds of criminals. We don't know where they are in this country, and that affects all of us. That's not a political party
That's
thing.
one thing. There's so many other things to go after him on.
that you seem to disagree on. I've got to tell you, I'm sitting here just stumped. You know, because you are a very different person than I thought you were.
Well, you've only seen me in clips
Yes,
and headlines,
that is,
and that's not fair.
And that is true. Now, you've broken from the Republican Party on a number of issues, including, besides the shutdown, such as the war in Gaza, tariffs, Trump's desire to expand AI, foreign aid. But you've also had these clips highlighting the public, very public spats that you've had with your colleagues, where your behavior, some say, is just unbecoming for a congresswoman. And you're promoting conspiracy theories like QAnon in the past. But you seem to have grown past that. And I feel like I'm sitting next to a completely different Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why the change? Why the evolution?
Well, Sonny,
it's like you've gone so right. It's like you're on the left now. It's like this.
I'm not on the left, and we could talk about Russian collusion. That was a conspiracy theory and a lie. There's lies that come from both sides. Let's be really honest.
Well, the
with
Russians
each other.
did try to affect the outcome of the
Russia
election.
collusion with Donald Trump was an absolute lie, and all the information's coming out. So both sides have had their lies, but here's where I'm at. All of this,
They
this
still
two-party
believe that
fighting,
crap.
you guys, you are all victims of the political industrial complex, and it's built on fundraising and fighting and toxic just garbage. And that exists all over social media, but that's not going to solve our problems in this country.
Would you say you don't believe in the QAnon conspiracies anymore?
Oh, I went over that a long time ago. I mean, we
So
could
you've changed.
Well, no, I haven't changed. I was a victim just like you were of media lies and stuff you read on social media. You all have attacked me many times on the show. Because of things that you read about me that weren't
Or
true.
clips we've seen.
Or clips you've seen
The Jewish
that
space
took me out
lasers,
of
what was that
context.
about?
Wait, hold
not
on.
even true.
Let's
It's
take a
been-
second.
Yeah, it's
because
been
I'm
rebuffed.
getting
That's her on The View. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. That was just kind of like, bruh. God help anyone who watches The View, bro. I swear, if you're a guy, you watch The View, you're probably gay. For real. Bruh. Insufferable women. So this is her on the Bill Maher show.
Documentary The Age of Disclosure, Dan Farah. He co-hosts the Fifth Column podcast and is host of the Moynihan Report, Michael Moynihan. And she is the Republican congressman from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I am your Halloween host, Bill Maher. Okay. Here are the questions from the people. I don't know what they are. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. For panel, the Waymo CEO said this week that society is ready to accept a traffic fatality caused by an autonomous car. Well, sure, he's going to say that. I mean, are we? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we accept human traffic, but we're not giving up cars, and this is where cars are going.
Yeah, I think they're a lot lower too on the Waymos and the Tesla ones. But every time you have one, and it's a news story. But there's one every minute in the countries in general.
Dan, what do you expect viewers to be most surprised by when they see your movie?
Honestly, it's probably how bipartisan the topic really is. Leaders from both parties can't agree on anything, but they agree on this being a serious, important issue.
You agree on that?
I think it's a serious issue. Yeah, I'd love to know more about it, but we're not told anything about it.
Well, you've had hearings. I mean, there was a hearing a couple of years ago, and they didn't say much. And then there was a hearing recently, right? Both of them are in the movie.
Yeah.
And a lot more came out. And there's a lot more people who are on board now. Very, very serious people. I got to say, Rubio was never the giantest fan, but I didn't think he was a terrible guy. I feel like he is the adult in that administration. He just always looks okay to me. He looks like he's got his head screwed on. He looks like a serious guy. I can live with that guy.
Well, I think he's doing a great job, and I'm
didn't say
glad.
that. He's doing the best he can.
At least we're talking about it, whereas before no one would admit it was even real. And I think
Right.
talking about it is extremely important. And I think people deserve to know the truth about it.
Yeah.
Just like the Epstein files, it'd be nice to know the truth about that.
Rubio put his reputation on the line to get out there and get in front of this topic, even though it wasn't convenient for him, and he did it because he thinks it's in the best interest of the American people, and I think he's right.
You see, he's going to get mad at you for saying that thing about the Epstein file. But he'll still talk to you.
Oh,
right?
I
You
love
can-
Donald Trump,
I
but it's
know.
okay for me to disagree.
Exactly.
I have my own mind.
Right.
I represent my district. That's my job title, representative.
Right.
And,
So-
and these women, they deserve it. And every woman that's a victim.
And I mean, you're famous for, and I don't think you ever said the words Jewish space laser.
No, I never did.
But I know I don't trust the media ever when I hear something like that, because I know there's always something more to it. Now, when I hear the more to it, I still might think it's crazy. I'll be honest with you, but I don't know. So what is the fuller version of that I don't know? When I just heard Jewish space laser, and you never said those words.
I never did.
Okay, but what were you talking about?
I made a post in 2018 on my Facebook page and talked about a very interesting new technology where they were harnessing the sun's.
Who's they?
This company. No.
I'm joking. God. She's not talking to me.
It's actually pretty funny. It's actually pretty funny.
No, the Rothschilds, she said. Come on.
Back then, I didn't even know the Rothschilds were Jewish. I didn't know.
You didn't?
I was, no.
Wow.
Before politics, I didn't know much of any of this stuff.
Right.
But I was commenting on this technology. That's all I was talking about. I never even said
Wow.
the word Jewish in the Facebook post.
Right. I mean, just so you know, Rothschild to a lot of people is almost synonymous with
Yeah.
the word Jewish.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Right. Well, now we know. That's what I'm here for. Make sure the people in Congress know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay. While accepting an award from Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, Billie Eilish called on the billionaires in the room to give more of their money away. Does this reflect her generation's general attitude toward wealth? Yes, I saw her on TMZ doing this, and she was just saying, if you're a billionaire, why? Yeah. No, a billion is a lot of money, and I can't imagine anyone needing that much money or how you could ever spend it. However, when you get to 995 million, no one wants to stop.
No.
And I'm not so sure she would either if she got there.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm a big believer in low taxes or even no taxes. I think that would be great. So I don't think just because someone is successful, you punish them. But that's just how I believe.
But isn't there a certain number that we get to? That, I mean, Elon Musk is approaching $500 billion. Where, you know, we went through this with John D. Rockefeller 100 years ago. He was worth like 2% of the gross national product, and they did do something about it. It was like, you just, one person can't really have that much. First of all, they don't need that much money. And it just does skew the system in ways that are not healthy. I'm not sure about $1 billion.
I'm pretty sure if you talk to people, they all want to make that much money.
Bruh, people are so bothered by rich people. I don't understand that stance. Like, are you that mad that somebody worked their asses off to make that much money? To be worth that much? That it really bothers you that much? I have to literally just go ahead and like crash out for a moment right quick. Bill Maher and all these leftists that sit up here and just bothered by a man having so much money and working his ass off is just like, bro, this is, you guys don't understand. Like, we live in a value-based market. People are going to fucking make money in a value-based market. They're just going to make money. That's what happens when you sign up for this type of market. When we live in a free country with free markets in a value-based system. Bro, talking about one thing, like, this guy can't reach all this much money. A guy shouldn't have that much money. That's just like, bro, they worked their ass off to earn that much money. And you're mad because they worked their ass off and made that much money and you didn't? That's why I don't understand like this anti-rich hatred that people have for rich people. Like, it's crazy to me. Yeah, I'm not saying rich people in general aren't, nice people, whatever. There are some bad ones, but to sit here and say that all rich people are inherently bad, that's just dumb, low IQ, and probably you're just mad because you're poor. So.
I mean, that's just, everyone wants to be successful.
I mean, he doesn't have that much money on hand, but it's obviously, but it's still a lot of money. I mean, look, the problem with lobbyists, you were mentioning lobbyists before, is that, I mean, Donald Trump last week pardoned a billionaire crypto guy that was deeply involved in his own crypto operation, his family's own crypto operation, and it seems to have made no news whatsoever. So we have, billionaires in there. I think you've talked about crypto, people having an undue influence on the current government, whether you're talking about Trump or not, I don't know. But this is an incredible outrage. The fact that this guy was pardoned and is directly involved in Trump family business with a, Trump shitcoin, as they call them in the, this does nothing. It doesn't perform a function. Bitcoin performs a function, the Trump coin does not. So it's an enormous slush fund, and I'm not sure why people are not more outraged by this, because
there's 12 other things.
I know, but
that's why, because it's way down the list. All right, Dan, how do you view the relationship between the intelligence community and mainstream media when it comes to reporting on UAP topics?
I think there's a lot of elements within the intelligence community that have an influence on mainstream media and encourage them not to cover this topic.
To not cover it.
Yeah, that is in fact what I think is happening. There's also a lot of people in the intelligence community who are in my film who are trying to bring the truth out despite that.
Some of them seem to be saying very outwardly that they fear for their life.
Yeah.
You think that's a real thing?
Yes, 100%. I had a couple people.
And who would be doing the killing in this? Who is hiring who to do what?
I think there are a number of parties involved in covering this topic up, and
cool.
threats against people's life have been used to discourage people from talking about it.
Who's making the threat?
comes from various elements within the government. I'll go into it in the film in depth, but certain groups within the intelligence community, certain groups within the military, certain groups within private defense contractor companies.
Jeez, he talks like a politician. You know what I found scary? The part about the people at the Pentagon who say it's demons. Tell them that story. Tell them about the demons.
Yeah.
It's Halloween. Yes. Tell them about the demons. Okay. What is that, Dan? Go into that.
So in the film, one of the senior intelligence officials named Jay Stratton, he was the director of Air and Space Warfare at the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then he ran the U.S. government's UAP task force. He tells a story about how he was trying to run this issue up the flagpole and bring attention to it.
At the Pentagon.
At the Pentagon, in a serious office space. And his superiors told him that they thought these things were demons and that he was doing the devil's work by looking into it. And on camera in the film, he says, I can't believe these words were coming out of their mouths. He's like, I'm briefing them on an advanced aerospace vehicle that's absolutely there. It's been spotted by trained observers like our Navy fighter pilots in their $80 million airplanes that we trust them with, right? It's been spotted on data collection systems like satellite and radar. And this guy's telling me it's a demon. It's insane. And he's like, my mind was blown, and this is something I'm dealing with inside of the government.
It's Halloween. Let me just ask the final question for the panel. Do you think demons and the devil are real?
Absolutely. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I definitely, and I believe those could be fallen angels.
All these things could be real.
Fallen angels.
Yeah.
But the aliens are fallen angels.
That's possible. I think that's what they could be. That's what makes sense in my worldview.
Now they're talking about aliens, bro. Come on, man.
And that's why we came here.
Oh,
to agree,
brother,
disagree,
what we
but still
talking
appreciate each other for having the conversation. Happy Halloween. Thank you very much.
They didn't get the first part of it because the first part of it was him talking shit about Trump at first with those two other guys. But yeah, that's her on The View, and that's her on Bill Maher. So that was her two appearances. Now we're going to get everyone's reactions to Marjorie Taylor Greene stepping down.
I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never, ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. I'll be resigning from office with my last day being January 5th, 2026, and I look forward to seeing many of you again sometime in the future. May God bless you all, and may God bless America.
Breaking news, Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's resigning from Congress, stepping down effective January 5th.
Wow.
She just had this huge fight with Donald Trump. I don't know why in the world she's doing that. The story just broke. She was finally having a positive impact in Congress on the Epstein files, on questioning Israel's funding, on now actually she joined Ro Khanna's bill and others' bill to lower drug prices. She had begun finally to do some amazing work. I don't know why in the world she's resigning. I don't know if it's, look, here are some possibilities right off the top of my head as the story is breaking live.
You never think that the Young Turks would be so receptive to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but considering that she changed her views now, and now she's technically, she says she's not a leftist by no means. She's still somewhat Republican, conservative, whatever. But now you've seen the Young Turks who like changed their opinion of her because they were like legit like hated Marjorie a year ago. Now all of a sudden they're so recipient. They speak so highly of her, saying she's like one of the good ones in the Republican Party and stuff. And like I understand that, yeah, the far left and the far right should reunite together to deal with this problem in America that we have, this dreidel spinning problem. But these guys sit up here and still want this woke culture crap and like want this this gay pride parades and stuff, and I'm not on board with none of that crap. But it's so surprising to sit him to see that they are so receptive to Marjorie Taylor Greene now compared to how they were, like I said, a year ago earlier. So it's like, it's funny, like they're like asking why she stepped down, why she's leaving Congress, she's doing good work. It's so weird seeing this from their perspective right now. It really is. Like, it's the far left and the right. So, but as you know, these these progressive types and all that, they can, if you're in agreement of getting the Epstein files out there, fighting against Israel, stop these super PACs funding all these politicians, then hey, they'll let you in the camp too as well.
Maybe to run for a bigger seat. That's, I suppose, possible. But there was talks of her running for Senate or for governor, and that didn't come to fruition earlier. I don't know if things have changed. It's not impossible for her to have been bullied out. Maybe they found something on her. I don't know. I think given Marjorie Taylor Greene's temperament, that's less likely, right? And it's possible that she's going to go do media or do something that is related to politics, but not.
Yeah, she's definitely about to be starting her own show. I guarantee she's about to be starting a podcast.
Actually, in Congress, and part of the reason might be, again, this is all speculation since the story's breaking right now. It's possible that she thinks Congress is useless. You know, we can't get anything done here. All these other guys are totally corrupt. Every time you go to do any bill, like the one I was talking about, lowering drug prices, that's actually Donald Trump's executive order that Ro Khanna just turned into a bill so that it could be more effective. So now everybody should join that bill. She joined it, but we can't get the Democrats to join other than Ro Khanna because they say, oh, well, it's not a perfect bill. It doesn't take the disabilities into account. It's Trump's executive order. But wait, it's your policy. It's Democratic policy to have most favored nation status, so we're not paying any more than the Germans, the French, the Canadians, the Japanese, etc., for the same exact drugs where the drug companies still make a ton of profit. Democrats are like, no, we're not going to join. The Republicans, it's a Trump executive order, and only 4 or 5 of them have joined. Why? Because almost all of Congress is corrupt, and they work for the drug companies. They're lying. They're all liars. So whenever you give them something that's a layup, paid family leave, sits at 84% popularity. Give moms 12 weeks off after they have a baby. They're like, no, we're never going to vote on it. We're never going to vote yes. We don't care if it's 84%, 94%, or 104% of the American people. We work for the donor class. So maybe she got frustrated and left because of that. I don't know. Maybe she got frustrated because of the Donald Trump fight. Or maybe she thought she was going to lose her primary, but that would be very, very surprising. She usually likes the fight, and I don't think she was going to. I don't think there's, in fact, we had a story playing today where a couple of outlets went and talked to people in her district, and they're like, no, we're definitely sticking with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so this is a very puzzling, very surprising move. Perhaps she'll soon explain why she did it. But for now, we know that Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving Congress on January 5th. I'm super disappointed by it. If you're a populist, look, I'm on the left, and I disagree with a lot of things that Marjorie Taylor Greene is in favor of. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, she said we should do a national divorce. No, we shouldn't do that at all. That's a terrible idea, right? And I can list many other things that I vehemently disagree with her on, right? But at least she was populist and she was honest. She was honest. She was honest on the things we agreed on. She was also honest on the things we disagreed on. She didn't hide any of her feelings. I'll take an honest congressman over a corrupt, dishonest one any day, and 95% of them are corrupt and dishonest. So anytime anybody that's actual populist leaves, to me, it's devastating. I think it's terrible. You got to stay and fight. I don't know if she'll change her mind or not, but it doesn't look like it. But if you guys, especially if you're right-wing populist and you like Marjorie Taylor Greene, try to talk her out of it. There's Massey and Green on the right, there's Ro Khanna on the left. And together, the three of them just defeated the other 532 people in Congress and got the Epstein files released. Now we're down to 2 of them? No. Go back in the ring. We need you in the ring. Even on so what I disagree with you on a bunch of stuff, on the majority of stuff. At least you were being honest. At least you were being populist and uniting on the things we agree on.
So we're hearing this stuff, bro. Wow, it's real. Hearing this coming from him. And Marjorie really got into their camp for sure. Because like they hear him just like go up here and then advocate for her going back in. That should let you know right there of how she's pretty much gone over to their side for the most part. I'm not saying she's a leftist or whatever. She could still is, but I mean, she's damn sure a feminist too. So, of course, regardless of they may have their disagreements or whatever, but I mean, Marjorie already exposed her who she really is underneath all that that makeup or whatever. Covert feminist. That's who she is.
Look, if you had told me this a year ago, I would have had the exact opposite reaction. I would have been ecstatic that Marjorie Taylor Greene's leaving. But she just made.
See what I mean? Literally, you just confirmed what I just said earlier. If this was a year ago, he was literally talking so much trash about Marjorie Taylor Greene, hated her guts, and now all of a sudden, whoop-de-doo, love Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The turn to actually uniting and being a true populist and fighting for things that we care about, lower drug prices, and yes, American sovereignty and protecting American voters and American citizens. This is the worst time to leave. So, all right, but that's the news, and obviously we'll give you updates when we have it.
Through it all, I never changed or went back on my campaign promises and only did.
I'm glad we watched that again. All right, let's listen to CNN, get their perspective on this. This is them announcing that Trump pulled support for lunatic Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oops.
Officially pulling his endorsement of MAGA firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia congresswoman has been demanding the release of the Epstein files and has criticized the president for spending too much time abroad. The president, well, has apparently heard enough, posting on Truth Social overnight that all wacky Marjorie Taylor Greene does is complain, complain, complain.
I think that her constituents aren't going to be happy. Already, I have people calling me. They want to challenge her to a race in her district in Georgia. And, you know, that's too bad. She's lost a wonderful conservative reputation. But when she says, don't go overseas, if I didn't go overseas, we might be in a war right now with China.
Meanwhile, President Trump is also upset with Congressman Thomas Massie, who also wants the Epstein files released. A Trump-aligned super PAC is spending $1 million on ads targeting the Kentucky Republican. Massie says his constituents understand his position.
Yeah, Miriam Edelson, she's spending millions of dollars in Massey's district and trying to get him primaried and basically taken out of his seat in Congress. All the stuff that Massey's been doing, you know, exposing APAC handlers, pushing to get the Epstein files, pretty much get the Epstein files released, being against all the foreign aid to Israel, pushing against bombing Iran. So Massey has been on the forefront fighting against this stuff in Congress, regardless of, like, I may not agree with the libertarian stance 100%. He's out here fighting against this stuff and doing what's necessary to pretty much try to save America and try to free America from the shackles. Of course, he's not going to be able to do it because it's one man against the army and establishment, pretty much. That's just in the pocket of these PACs, the pocket of the donors, you know. So hopefully Massey is able to survive this stuff and quell the storm and to be able to remain in his seat, because without him, we wouldn't even know half the stuff we know right now in Congress if it wasn't for him being in there.
When they're protecting pedophiles, when they are blowing our budget, when they're starting wars overseas, I'm sorry, I can't go along with that. And back home, people agree with me. They understand, even the most ardent Trump supporters understand.
And President Trump has now ordered the Justice Department to investigate companies and
that guy's hairstyle's crazy, I'm not gonna lie.
Democrats who he claims had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. And Attorney General Pam Bondi was quick to oblige, appointing the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan to handle that probe, even though 4 months ago, the DOJ determined nothing in the Epstein files warranted further investigation. This week, the president's name turned up repeatedly in just released emails from the Epstein estate.
Yeah.
What did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago.
A lot of moving parts on this story. We get more now from CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Pettis.
Good morning, Danny. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that federal prosecutors in New York are being tasked to launch yet another investigation of people associated with child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. This new investigation comes after President Donald Trump said that he was asking Bondi to investigate Epstein's ties to prominent Democrats. He named specific names, including former President Bill Clinton. Now, it's yet an extraordinary turn in a political mess that has consumed this White House for months. And it comes just days after Democrats had released emails from the late Epstein estate that mentioned Trump many times. Trump announced, directed in social media, that accusing the Democrats of trying to revive attention to his past ties with Epstein and contending that they are, quote, using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try to deflect from their own disaster shutdown and all of their other failures. Bondi responded to the president's social media post by thanking the president and saying that she'd have U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton in Manhattan lead this new investigation. This is the same office that led the earlier investigations of Epstein and of Ghislaine Maxwell, who worked for Epstein and was convicted of charges that she aided in the trafficking of girls. We should note that the Justice Department this summer did an assessment of documents that's in their possession, and they determined that there were no additional defendants that could be charged with crimes associated with Epstein. And this new investigation also means, though, that Congress will likely have to wait much longer for any documents to be released, because there's an effort right now gaining steam in the House to force the release of those documents. But during an ongoing investigation, the Justice Department generally doesn't release investigative files out of concern that it would harm any possible prosecutions. Danny?
All right, Evan Bettis, thank you very much for that reporting. For more on this, let's discuss the Epstein case and where it all may be headed with Stephen Newcomb. He's a congressional reporter for Axios. Stephen, thanks so much for waking up early to talk about a lot of development.
Well, we already know where it's already headed for the most. We already know where it's headed. They already voted in Congress to get it passed, the Senate. So it's coming at some point, but we don't know in what format we're going to receive the files. So we're just going to move on, and we're going to get Nick's perspective on this whole Marjorie Taylor Greene situation.
And our first story, I do want to talk about the Marjorie Taylor Greene resignation. Huge news and a big surprise, big shocker. This came out of absolutely nowhere. It makes no sense on some level. Marjorie is relatively young. I mean, she's an older woman, but she's relatively young for a congresswoman. And as far as I'm aware, I think she's more popular than ever.
Wait, hold on. How old is Marjorie Taylor Greene? Hold on. I never even checked her age. She's relatively young. I didn't know that. Let me see. She's 51 years old. Yeah, she's Not that young. JD Vance is younger than her. Holy shit. Well, I guess in her sense as a woman.
She has easily won every election since her first election, I think in 2022 or 2020. She's been around for a long time. She's been learning the game. She's been quite popular. And like I said, the resignation follows her total and complete victory over Donald Trump concerning the bill which will force the DOJ to release the Epstein files. Donald Trump has been working overtime to cover up the Epstein files, to bury them, to distract people from them, to 100%. Persuade the members of Congress that want to get them released to stand down. He's really pulled out all the stops to prevent this from happening. And it was only this week, I believe we covered it on Monday and Tuesday. It is now headed to the president's desk for a signature. It is only this week that the bill finally passed, and it did so with the defections of 4 MAGA congressmen, Thomas Massie, Marjorie Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. This was the latest and arguably the most intense conflict between Marjorie Greene and President Trump to date. It seemed that this is a relationship that had been fraying for some time, maybe due to political reasons. Marjorie's very ambitious. I think we all know that she has ambitions to run for a statewide office like governor or senator of Georgia. I imagine she was angling for the vice presidency last year. At least that's what I've heard. I always thought that was idiotic, but other people insisted that would happen, and it didn't. I imagine she was angling for a cabinet position. And so it would seem to me that she is basically somebody who outgrew Congress, but found herself reaching a very low ceiling. And it seemed that the party leadership, perhaps Trump included, was not keen on elevating her any further. Perhaps they recognize that she doesn't have a very high ceiling. I don't think she has what it takes, actually. I don't think that she has the right personality. I don't think she has the right politics. I don't think she's smart enough to become the governor, the senator, or the president. I think everyone recognizes that. And so they want to keep her around as a staunch, energetic ally in Congress. They don't see any future Senate campaign or governor campaign with her at the top of the ticket that has any chance or any kind of legs or anything like that. And so I think there was some maybe political disagreement. There was maybe a political clash, and by politics, I mean purely politics. And of course, that has manifested as a policy disagreement. I think that as Marjorie has grown frustrated with her current standing, or lack thereof, I think she has decided to rebel against the party and against Trump in particular. It's also the case that Congress across the board is rebelling against a deeply unpopular president who seems to be hemorrhaging support with independents, and especially lately, even with Republicans, on key issues like the economy, issues like immigration. These are Republican issues. These are Trump issues. His support is dying. And so this has been the theme of the past year. Marjorie Greene, being what she is, she blows with the wind. She goes and bandwagons wherever the people are. Whatever's popular, that's what she embraces. She serves as a bellwether, a weather vane for where the MAGA base is at, given that she is arguably the first or the second class of MAGA congressmen or congresspeople. At the same time, I think she's willing to represent that because she's dissatisfied. She's unhappy. She doesn't want to be a congresswoman for 40 years. She wants to be the senator, and then she wants to be the president. She wants to be the Secretary of Education. She wants more, and it's not being given to her. And that's very clear. We'll talk a little bit about why that is, how we know that. And in any case, so this relationship has been fraying over the past year. It's political, but I think that Marjorie has seized on some very real popular sentiment. It also shows that it's not just political. There's also more to it as well, even if it's opportunistic. And this really metastasized until eventually it turned into an open conflict, an open battle between Marjorie and the president over the Epstein files. And Marjorie, standing with Thomas Massie and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace, these were the 4 Republican defectors that insisted, and they voted and worked along with the Democrats on passing a bill in the House forcing the release of the files. Because of that, Trump put Marjorie in the crosshairs and has unleashed a vicious attack on her in the past couple of weeks, calling her a traitor and saying actually that he would go to her district in Georgia in the midterms and maybe campaign for a potential primary challenger and work to unseat her and take the nomination from her as the incumbent. And that's a major escalation and a major betrayal, considering that Marjorie Greene has been one of Trump's closest friends and staunchest allies in Congress, one of the most conservative members of Congress. And in fairness, the areas where Marjorie has broken with the president, these are areas where the president has broken with the people. Marjorie disagrees with the president on H-1Bs, on bombing Iran, on foreign aid to Israel, and on the Epstein files. These all happen to be MAGA America First issues. These are America First labor, corruption, and foreign policy issues. And most of these things are things that Trump campaigned on himself. Perhaps not specifically H-1Bs, but Trump did campaign on not starting new wars, on an America First foreign policy, and on releasing the Epstein files. He's not delivering, and these are the areas where Marjorie has disagreed. In response, Trump has totally pulled the rug out from under her and declared an open war on her. Marjorie retaliated against the president. She replied, and she said that because of the statement, she's been getting death threats. She says that people are threatening her, harassing her, doxing her. She's in fear for her life, and Trump has totally dismissed that. Now, the big news came today, on Friday, that she is resigning. And she talked in her resignation message about this conflict. She talked about how she's frustrated with the lack of change or willingness to change in Washington. She wrote about how she is disappointed and saddened about the conflict with the president. She also writes about the pressure she's under and the danger. And she says that she will be resigning effective January 5th, 2026. And as of right now, that's it. If there is some deeper reason or greater reason, she didn't say it or imply it. And if she has any future.
Pretty much it's just her heart's not in the game to fight this stuff, Brian. Regardless of what people may say, it's just not in the game to fight this long term.
Her political ambitions, she didn't say that either. And we'll work through this. This is from the New York Times. This is the news story about it. It says, quote, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the hard-right Georgia Republican, said on Friday night that she would resign from Congress in January, an announcement that came days after President Trump branded her a traitor for breaking with him and helping to force a vote to compel the Justice Department to release its files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Ms. Greene, who was elected in 2020 and positioned herself as a diehard Trump supporter until a series of ruptures with the president on a variety of issues, made the abrupt announcement in a video and statement she posted online, filmed from her home in Georgia, with her Christmas tree on display behind her. Important detail there. She said, quote, loyalty should be a two-way street. We should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interest. She said that she had been cast aside by MAGA Inc. It was indicative that many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. In a phone interview with an ABC reporter, Mr. Trump called her plans great news for the country. Love it. Love that. It is extremely unusual for a member of Congress to up and leave in the middle of a term, barring an illness or some extenuating circumstance that makes it impossible to carry on. But Ms. Greene said she had made the decision to leave because she did not want to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms. She added, I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. That's a really weird thing to say. It's called you fight? What do you mean a battered wife? You're not married to the president. And you're a congresswoman. What are you talking about? I refuse to just hope it all gets better. Well, who's going to make it better? You have to fight for that. You have to battle.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I refuse to be a battered wife. What does that even mean? Who wrote this trash? I refuse to be a battered wife. What are you talking about? That part does not make any sense.
Yo, her PR coach is about to be fired for doing that. That was the worst written speech I ever heard. Whoever wrote that for her, God needs to be fired.
Ms. Greene, who arrived in Congress in 2021 as something of a pariah in her own party, has tried out many different ways of doing the job. She carved out a singular space on Capitol Hill as part of a group of lawmakers at both extremes of the ideological spectrum, less interested in legislating and building up seniority in leadership suites, and more interested in influencing politics from the outside, using social media to troll adversaries. This is just the worst written article. She briefly acted as a team player, forgiving an unlikely alliance with Speaker Kevin McCarthy that brought her some internal standing in the Republican conference, landed her on prime committees that Democrats had removed her from. Stephen Bannon said the House is not big enough for her ambitions or personality. She had her committee assignments pulled by Pelosi in her first term and rose to be a national figure. We haven't seen or heard the last of MTG. In the Friday Night Post, Ms. Greene said her last day in office would be January 5th. So here's the thing. I have mixed feelings about the whole story. The whole thing is a total surprise. And I think the statement is basically a fake statement. She made this big, long video and she addresses some of her grievances and ostensibly she explains her decision, but I think we all know none of this is true. There's some other reason that she's resigning. None of this makes sense. And I think it points to one distinct possibility, which might be the most obvious. She wants to be the president. She wants to run for president. Everybody knows that. The 2028 primary is soon approaching. You've got the midterms in 2026. Shortly after the midterms, which the Democrats will almost certainly take over.
Imagine people show some support for Marjorie Taylor Greene becoming president. Bro, that defeats the purpose of like never voting for woman president ever at all. I don't care how based Marjorie Taylor Greene's become in the last year. No woman president ever. None whatsoever.
Over the House is 2027. And in 2027, both parties are going to have a wide open primary. Trump is term limited, so the Republicans are going to have a wide open primary. It's anybody's game, and they'll be competing for Trump's endorsement as well. It's truly going to be wide open for the first time since 2016. And really, that primary started in 15. So we have not had an open primary, or we will not by the time of the next one, for 13 years. 12, 13 years since it has been anybody on the ticket other than Trump. You know, over a decade. That's a very long time and very unusual. So, of course, everybody in the Republican Party with ambitions is acutely aware of this. DeSantis, Haley, Pence, Vance, Noem, Rubio, Green, like all these people, and even many outsiders, they are all deeply aware, hyper aware, you could say, hyper conscious, that what Trump is a lame duck. He is a lame duck president that will not have a re-election, and everybody is acting accordingly. And I told you it would be like this, although when I was telling you this last year, I was strictly talking about the cabinet. And I guess I didn't really even consider that this would also afflict the House and the Senate. And that's something that maybe people didn't really take into account, which is that everybody's expectation is that the second Trump term will have no rules because Trump is term limited. He doesn't have to worry about reelection. People said that would be a positive. People said that would be actually helpful. That without having to worry about reelection, Trump could be as radical as he wants. He could be extreme. He cannot be held accountable. That was the idea going in. This was going to be a radical second term. He was going to be our vengeance, deliver a golden age, and he would not be constrained by public opinion or thinking about reelection, donors, all those petty considerations. But I told you last year, no, the opposite is true. The exact opposite is true, which is that because the primary will open up, everybody in the party is going to be doing nothing other than angling for the nomination. So people in his cabinet are not really going to be focused on delivering America first, which might be a risky business. Because to actually deliver on Trump's agenda, you might have to be deeply unpopular. You've got to be invested in the success of the administration for the 4 years, for the full 4 years. If you're angling, however, to run for the nomination in 2027, which is really just 2 years in, do you have that kind of commitment? Are you invested? Or are you going to be risk averse? Are you going to be doing things that are only good PR, doing things that only have an upside or a value for a potential presidential run? And people have a memory about these things. So you have to acknowledge, you have to understand that the Secretary of State, the Vice President, the Secretary of War, potentially the Secretary of Homeland Security, many in the Senate, many in the House, many of the governors even, they are all thinking about this deeply. And so their eye is not on the ball. And so what is maybe the most obvious here is Marjorie is resigning from Congress because she's got presidential ambitions. And like I said, this is also
I already said earlier, my perspective, she is going to probably start her own podcast for the most part and just try to be a political commentator at that point. I mean, it's what Matt Gaetz did, because he was supposed to be an attorney general before he got dropped out because of all those allegations that had happened to him before. But if RFK got approved, Matt Gaetz could have gotten approved. If Pete Hegseth could have got approved, Matt Gaetz definitely could have gotten approved. Could have got his nomination for sure. So he passes confirmation here, I mean. So it just begs the question that I'll see Nick's perspective. I think she's going to be pretty much go down the political commentator route, but there is a possibility also that she could probably go and become a candidate for presidency. So the closer we get to that point, we will know for sure. As far as I'm concerned, though, that tweet though confirmed that it's probably not going. She's not getting back into politics, not in that way. Of course, she's going to probably get into the political commentator route.
specific to her. And I said earlier, we know for a fact that she's ambitious. She ran in 2020 as a MAGA congresswoman when the Democrats won the majority. And very quickly, she was sidelined and I think also sort of typecast as a hillbilly, as a hill person, a Trump radical, someone like the New York Times describes her, who is not interested in building a coalition or working across the aisle or passing legislation, but she wants to be a social media influencer. She wants to pander to the furthest right edge of the MAGA base. So she was taken out of the game quite early. She lost her committee assignments. She was marginalized really by her own party as well. And then in 2022, when the Republicans retook the House, Marjorie Greene sold out. And she went and made a deal with Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is not MAGA. He's not loyal to Trump. He's not loyal to anybody. He's like the epitome of a spook. He lives with Frank Luntz. They share a house in D.C. It's weird. He takes tons of foreign money. He should have been the speaker many years ago, but he got blackmailed out of it. Like, this guy is he is like the definition of the D.C. swamp, the definition of everything that's wrong with the GOP conference. And in 2022, when Republicans gained back the House by a hair, it was very difficult for the Republicans to choose a speaker because there was nobody in the House that could really command a large number of votes besides Kevin McCarthy. And the more radical members of Congress from the Freedom Caucus or from the emerging MAGA caucus, they didn't want to support him. They don't like him for the same reasons that I do. And Marjorie Greene basically made a deal with Kevin McCarthy and said that she would help him get the speakership. She would quell the MAGA uprising. She would mediate that if he would elevate her in Congress. And so there Marjorie was with Milo Yiannopoulos, her Jewish pedophile assistant, her lapdog. There they were on election night in 22. They said cheers to joining the swamp. And Marjorie Greene sold out the MAGA base. She did a lap dance on Kevin McCarthy. She busted down for him. She whipped the votes. She attacked Matt Gaetz. She attacked others that didn't want Kevin McCarthy to be the speaker.
That is definitely true. She did attack Matt Gaetz at it when Trump had called for him to be his attorney general. She did come out there and publicly bashed Matt Gaetz. That's one thing I forgot to mention that too as well. she was one of the prominent ones that that bashed Matt Gaetz. It's kind of funny that Matt's kind of come around to her now in some ways, kind of forgiving her for that. You know, it's kind of odd how that happens, but I mean, hey, you really don't know at all like what most of these guys are just thinking, because most of these guys are just coming around to these views around this time right now. They've never really had these views besides just the last year. Well, not even just the last year, this year. No, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these guys that are getting boosted and getting so much praise and getting so much love. These guys didn't have these views until just this year. They didn't have these views last year. They didn't have these views in 2013. They have these, 2023. They didn't have these views in 2022. They didn't have these views in 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017. None of these views during the first Trump administration. So, odd how this stuff happens.
And then she got her reward. She took her money like a whore. She got her position, and she was put back on the committees.
Jump right back into
but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, and it didn't work out. Because, of course, Kevin McCarthy crashed and burned after just a year. Kevin McCarthy did not hold up his end of the bargain to Matt Gaetz and to the others. He did not deliver the January 6th Capitol Hill riot footage. He did not deliver on auditing Ukraine aid. He did not deliver on restricting the out-of-control debt spending by refusing to lift the debt ceiling. He didn't do any of that. As a result, he was bounced by Matt Gaetz. There was effectively a vote of no confidence by Matt Gaetz just before October 7th. Kevin McCarthy was overthrown and replaced with Mike Johnson. So Marjorie lost her sugar daddy in 2023. She made this deal. She sold out. She became deeply unpopular. Everybody recognized that. And then her sugar daddy, well, he lost anyway. And Matt Gaetz then eventually lost his position because the swamp retaliated against him. But this wasn't enough for Marjorie. Marjorie wanted the committee assignments, and she wanted to make this deal to demonstrate that she's a serious player. Because she wasn't happy being a Paul Gosar. She wasn't happy being a Thomas Massie. She, in other words, did not want to be stuck in the back of the classroom and be in Congress being the nut job, ridiculed and laughed at and not taken seriously. She wanted to be the governor. She wanted to be the senator. She wanted to be the vice president. She wanted to be in the cabinet. She's very ambitious. So the reason she made the deal with Kevin McCarthy to get the assignments, it wasn't just because she wanted the committee assignments. It's because she wanted to start to build up her credibility. And she wanted to change her reputation. She wanted to repair her reputation as the hillbilly MAGA congresswoman. She wanted to be the bastard you could do business with. She wanted to be the woman that, okay, you know, she's demonstrating her political chops. She can make compromises. She can be a team player. She can eat shit and get attacked by the base in order to help the party. And she thought that not only would she get her committee assignments, but maybe one day the GOP would select her to run for the Senate seat in Georgia or to run for the governorship. But that was delusional because she does not have what it takes. She is not smart. She's not very good looking. No offense. This is politics. It is what it is. And what's more, unfortunately, she is just not politically viable in the state of Florida, which had in 2020 2 Democrat senators, which had, you know, Brian Kemp as the governor, who is not a radical at all. In other words, you can't be the MAGA congresswoman. You can't be what she is and be the statewide winner in a state like Georgia, which has become a purple state, which has become a pretty contentious state between Republicans and Democrats. So Republicans, I'm sure, told her that's never going to happen. They said governor, senator, vice president, cabinet post, never going to happen. You've been a congresswoman for what, like 4 years? And you got nothing going on. And nobody likes you. The Democrats don't like you, you know. And so I think what very clearly happened is that she hit her ceiling.
Especially in the moderate and even people on the progressive far left ones, like AOC, don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene either.
She sold out, but the party was not going to really give her everything maybe that she expected to get out of this. She made this proverbial Faustian bargain. She made her deal with the devil. And as is always the case, the devil actually doesn't deliver. You sell your soul and you don't get what you think you're going to get. So she sold her soul. She gave up her credibility. And she said, all right, am I going to be the governor now? And they said, get the fuck out of here. You're not going to be the governor. Be happy you're on a committee. They said, be happy you're on a committee. And maybe in 10 years you could be, maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll have that conversation. So she got rug pulled, just like everybody does, just like they always do when you trust the party. And by the way, there's a lesson in this. Everybody thinks they're playing the system. The system is playing you because they made the system and they wrote its rules. So everybody thinks they're going to instrumentalize the system cynically. They're going to infiltrate. They're going to subvert. Everybody thinks they're going to make a pact with the system with their fingers crossed behind their backs, thinking they have no idea. I'm just using them to get ahead. When in reality, you cannot make deals with the system because the system was here before you were born. And the system wrote the rules. And the system, it is the water in which you swim. And so the idea that you will get an advantage over the system, it is not mathematically possible. It can't happen. The idea that you're going to pull one, you're going to pull a fast one, you're going to sneak it past the goalie, it doesn't work. The house always wins. That's why it's the house. That's how they make money, because they make the games and they pay the dealers. So, you know, you're never going to get an advantage. And I've been a believer in this for many years. All these people, they go in there thinking they're going to, you know, I know better. I know what I'm doing. No, you don't. Marjorie Greene, you should have stuck to your daddy's construction company. You do not know how to play. They're smarter than you. They've been there longer than you. They're more powerful than you. It was never going to work. So she sold out her supporters thinking that she could make a pact with the system. Surprise, surprise, it didn't work out. Kevin McCarthy got blown up. Her deal got blown up with that. And anyway, they don't even want to run her for a higher office. So where does that leave her in 2025? Well, understandably, she's pissed because she thinks she deserves more. She's a star fundraiser. She's famous. She's got a big social media. I think the cloud got to her head, and she's thinking, I deserve more. I'm not getting everything that I deserve. And I think she starts to resent the president. She starts to resent the GOP. And politically, she sees an opening, which is that there is some discontent in the Republican Party about the war in the Middle East, about the war in Ukraine, about some of the statements on immigration, about Epstein. And I think Marjorie finds her leverage. What's going to be her third act? If her first act was MAGA nut job, second act was traitor, sellout bitch. If her third act is going to be, how do I get the initiative back? I will become the voice of the discontented MAGA. If you're not going to listen to me as the team player, I'll go right back on the outside. I tried to be a team player for McCarthy. If you're not going to give me what I'm owed, then I'm going to become a problem for you. So she finds an opportunity, which is to become the mouthpiece and potentially a lightning rod for some of this internal dissent in the party concerning foreign aid to Israel, concerning Tucker, concerning the remarks on H-1B and the Epstein files. And over time, she grows more bold and more outspoken and builds up this catalog of issues. And it starts to really represent like a distinct position, because if you disagree with Trump on labor, immigration, foreign policy, and Epstein, that's like a platform. So it culminates in this battle. Trump slaps her down hard. Now, where does that leave her here in 2025 after the big Epstein dispute? I think that potentially this is one explanation. She recognizes that MAGA is a sinking ship. She's right. The Republicans are going to get destroyed in the midterms. They're going to lose the House. And even if Marjorie runs in 2026 and wins, if Trump tries to primary her, it's going to be a vicious battle. It's going to be ugly. Battle lines are going to be drawn. It's going to be unavoidable. And she might make a lot of enemies. And certainly she's going to take a lot of hits. If she has Trump and AIPAC and the Jewish lobby going really hard against her for a year, she's going to get bruised up, even if she wins. And even if she wins, she's going to be entering a Democrat-controlled chamber. They're going to take her committee assignments from her all over again, back to square one. So maybe Marjorie is just jumping off of the sinking ship. She doesn't want to play that game. She is going to avoid getting bruised up in a primary, avoid getting attacked, getting ads ran against her, getting maybe blackmail disclosed about her, and she's going to gear up for the 28 primary. Maybe that's the angle. Maybe that's the idea. Perhaps that's the goal. Another explanation is, who knows, maybe they got something on her. Maybe she's afraid. Maybe they have blackmail on her. Maybe they have something, because she's not the first person to leave under mysterious circumstances, and she's also not the first person to leave under mysterious circumstances who became a problem for MAGA Inc. Matt Gaetz comes to mind.
Yeah.
Do you remember the tale of Matt Gaetz?
Yep.
Matt Gaetz led the coup against Kevin McCarthy in September 2023. When Matt Gaetz and the MAGA caucus shut down the government, Kevin McCarthy worked with the Democrats to open the government back up. So Matt Gaetz, with a single vote, initiated a vote of no confidence. Kevin McCarthy lost. He was overthrown and he was forced to resign. His own party took the speakership from him. Matt Gaetz led the charge. Kevin McCarthy resigned. After that, the Republican Party had it out for Matt Gaetz. They started to investigate him. They talked about releasing damning evidence about maybe past sexual or romantic relationships. And so in 2024, after Trump won the election, Matt Gaetz was nominated for Attorney General. He was never going to get the votes for this. I don't know if it was ever serious. It became clear he would not get the votes. He would not be confirmed in the Senate. There was talk that the blackmail would be dumped on him. And so he withdrew himself from consideration and then dropped out of Congress. So he won re-election in 24, was submitted as a nominee for Attorney General, withdrew, and then dropped out and would not take office after his re-election in 24, which was not necessary. He didn't have to do that. And a lot of people said, maybe they had blackmail on him. And Matt Gaetz is another MAGA caucus guy. He fought Kevin McCarthy and won. He was another guy who was maybe not loyal to the GOP conference, not loyal to the system. And he also mysteriously resigned, and now he's at OAN, and it's kind of sad. And he's another one that's become a big Israel critic. Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Now you want to criticize Israel. That's super helpful, bro.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz show doesn't really get that many views. I don't think anyone watches him. I gave him a subscription on YouTube, but I'm like, bro, Who the fuck watches Matt Gaetz' show? Honestly speaking, it's just not that. It's not that good. And no knock to him. I get it. He's out of Congress and he went down the political commentator route. But it's just like, come on, bro. You could have done better than that.
You were a congressman for years. You were well known. And now that you're on OAN, now you found the courage to talk about Israel. Profiles and courage. Thanks. Helpful. Awesome. Hero. And it also reminds me of Madison Cawthorn. Madison Cawthorn, same deal. Young guy, pro-Trump, MAGA, very conservative, loves the Roman Empire. He goes on a podcast and says, it's Sodom and Gomorrah in D.C. There's orgies and sex parties. What do? Primary challenger. They release all this blackmail on him. He loses the primary. And now I think he's mounting a campaign. I think I saw him on Fresh and Fit the other night. So that's great. So Madison Cawthorn, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Greene all have met the same fate. They all got elected to Congress. They stood up against the system, and then they got slapped down. They got pwned. They got slapped down by the machine. They're all MAGA, all pro-Trump, all anti-establishment.
Yeah, I think I remember the guy I was talking about. The guy was a wheelchair. I was watching that was the after I was with Alex Stein. Yeah, so that guy got damn. So he got kicked out of Congress too.
They'll have their own ideas. They were all famous. They all maybe got a little too big for their britches. Very ambitious, not tactful. Very disruptive, not strategic. And each and every one of them got annihilated by the system. And I imagine most likely that is what happened with Marjorie Greene. I don't think actually this was a strategic move. I don't think this was a tactical move because it makes no sense. If you were going to take on the presidency or some other higher office, you would do so as a congresswoman. And if Trump is crashing and burning, then you can articulate that in your position as a congresswoman or in your campaign. You can run as a survivor. The only reason why you might not want to stick it out is because if you do, they'll have the ability to make it really painful for you. So I'm not buying her explanation. I also don't think this is some segue into future political run. She might do that later, but I don't think that's the impetus behind this. I imagine she was either threatened or blackmailed. And I think that's the urgency. I think that explains the timing. She overthrows Trump on Epstein. It's a mutiny. I said it on Monday. I said, don't underestimate what a big deal this is. It's a huge deal. It's a mutiny. And Marjorie and Thomas Massey and Boebert and Mace, they led the charge. And for her to announce her resignation just a few days after that, that's a big deal. So I think she was threatened. I think she was threatened. I think that she was blackmailed. Something happened, but it was made clear to her that if she runs, her political career is going to end. I think that was intimated to her in some way, shape, or form. And this is why I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I stand with her in principle. If she's criticizing Israel, if she's criticizing foreign aid, if she's criticizing H-1Bs, if she's criticizing the GOP conference, in principle, I'm with her. And if she got punished for that, then I'm with her. The reason I'm actually relieved to see her go is because she is not a principled person. This is not a principled person at all. She is a craven political opportunist. She is an egomaniac. She just isn't that smart.
Mentioned that at the top of the hour before I delve into the story about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's just not an authentic person. So that's why, like, it's kind of like, you know, bye. Don't really care if she's gone. It's like, this is, the men are going to take over and win this fight anyways. We don't need the women in this. You know, the ones that are going to cause a change are the men. The women can cause their change by being at home and being the mothers again. So I agree with Nick on that. It's just like, I'm not really a big fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look, she's good. She's speaking out against, you know, foreign aid, criticizing Israel, bombing Iran, Epstein files. That's great. It's just that now she's just pretty much revealed to be a raging feminist. That's all. I'm not in favor of that, quite frankly. I don't like how she's just up here bashing men with the anti-man rhetoric, the anti-Republican men. Like, bitch. You know, that's just who she is. Hell, Laura Loomer is kind of right in her assessment about her. In some ways, I hate to say it, I have to agree with Laura Loomer, out of all people.
And, you know, on some level, it's the more the merrier. The more people are saying the message, it's a great thing. But I think that someone like her, I don't trust her. I don't really see her as a viable leader. I don't see her as a leader of men because she is a woman. And I don't think that she actually really took a brave stand at any point in her career. I think that it was popular to support Trump when she supported Trump. I think that it was convenient to support McCarthy when she did that. And I think that when she took up the mantle of dissatisfaction with Trump this year, again, I think that's where the wind was blowing. And so I don't think she's very principled at all. I don't think she's taken a principled stand in her life. I think she's reactive. She follows the trends. She follows and reacts to things that happen to her. And so I find her to be not only untrustworthy because she lied about me and lied about her relationship with me and lied about her views. So I think she's a liar. I think she's not courageous. She is a follower, a bandwagoner, so she has no principles. She worked with Kevin McCarthy. And if it wasn't for Matt Gaetz, we would still have Kevin McCarthy. And it would have been her fault. When it was convenient, she sold us out and thought she was smart for doing that. And in the end, the only reason she sounds like us or adopted our talking points is because we popularized them, no thanks to her. They became popular, no thanks to her. She didn't talk about this stuff. She didn't vote this way. She voted for foreign aid to Israel over and over and over again. She voted for foreign aid to Ukraine until it became unpopular. So good riddance. I agree with Trump. It is great news for the country. And if the loyalty thing is true, loyalty does go both ways. She was not loyal to me. Good riddance. Everybody always wants to be ecumenical. You know, Tucker was telling me, why are you attacking these people? Hey, they attacked me first. He goes, who cares? Okay, so which is it then? I'm the problem.
Yeah, remember that. He did ask him that question in the interview. And then Tucker said, yeah, I know, but so what? It's the principle about it, bro. Like, the whole purpose about it's like, you don't disavow people on the side. We stick together. We fight the fight we need to fight together. If we disavow each other or whatever, we're showing showing non-loyalty to each other, then just like, yeah, that doesn't seem like a winning format. It just seems like opportunist. That's what a lot of these guys were. That's what Joe Kent was to Nick. Same thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's what she was, opportunist. So she hopped on an opportunity right here, and now look at her. She's riding the coattails of this opportunity right now, to where possibly she's going to go down a Matt Gaetz route and become a political commentator.
For attacking people.
Probably even go on the same network as him.
But them attacking me is, I should ignore that? No, fuck them. And Marjorie Greene, good riddance. Enjoy your honeymoon with your weird husband at RSBN. Good riddance. You know, and by the way, she's a woman. So I never liked that to begin with. The idea that we were going to be led by a woman was, I'm surprised how many people fell for that. She's the one. She's going to be the leader. She's a woman. No offense. But I'm not about to follow a woman like that. You know, what even is this movement about if it has a woman as its leader? Give me a break. So all the fag hags, or I guess she's a fag hag, all the fags worship her.
All right, I got to yeah, I forgot he did say that during this. During this monologue. Oh, man. I should have expected that. Let me,
remarried. There's some weird affair going on there, some weirdo stuff going on there. Her husband, her new boyfriend from RSBN, is always posting pictures of them fucking hugging and kissing. Hey, nobody wants to see that, man. Aren't you guys both 60? Nobody wants to see a couple of 60-year-old crusty boomers making out. It's just kind of gross to look at, for crying out loud. Anyway, so I'm actually glad about the development. And you know what? You got to fight it out. I mean, look, either she got threatened or black.
Yeah, okay. So that's that about the Marjorie Taylor Greene stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I'm more of like in this Nick's side of this. Yeah, good riddance, quite frankly. I'm not really a big fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's good she awakened, even though it did seem like it kind of was like the most inauthentic. It felt like it was not exactly like authentic enough to where she became to these views. It felt like it was more of like a opportunist. It came off as being an opportunist. It felt like it came off as just being like she cashed in on an opportunity to join something that's like gaining popularity, gaining tractions, and joining an already winning side that's only going to grow more and more and more over time. So of course she jumped on board, and then she jumped on with the plans instead of just sticking to where she did before, where she denounced Nick, not only that, but acknowledged that she don't even know who he was, even though she spoke at his conference, fired one of his friends, one of the Groypers, I mean, and then, going off for basically, bad mouth Matt Gaetz when he was running for attorney general or whatever, because he got Kevin McCarthy kicked out of his position as House Speaker. So, yeah, oh well, fight goes on. We don't lose sleep over this. We don't cry about women losing the fight. As a matter of fact, she can just go back to the kitchen. So that's that. Now we move on to the fraud stuff with Tim Walz. Treasury House panel launched probes into Tim Walz handling of $1 billion food aid fraud, and they could make criminal referrals. Washington, a powerful U.S. House Committee and Treasury Department both launched an investigation into Minnesota Gov. Tim Walz's involvement in a massive fraud scheme that involved Somali immigrants balking more than $1 billion from taxpayers, they revealed Monday. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, Somalians are running fucking Minnesota. Like I said earlier, they are fucking running it. To get $1 billion from the taxpayers, bro. This is why people hate Somalians right now. Indians and Somalians are like two of the most hateable groups of people in America, and want to just completely just deport them all. Quite frankly, they come here. They're the most insufferable groups of people too, as well. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Cuomo told the Post that his panel will conduct a thorough investigation into Governor Walz's failure to safeguard tax dollars. As a result, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was warned about massive fraud in a pandemic food aid program for children, yet he failed to act. Instead, whistleblowers who raised concerns faced retaliations, Coomer said. Because of the Governor Walz's negligence, criminals, including Somali terrorists, stole nearly $1 billion from the program while children suffered. Man. As a chairman of the powerful GOP-led, Cuomo can issue subpoenas and refer alleged crimes to the Department of Justice for potential prosecutions. So let's just say it like this. This is like completely and utterly like despicable from Tim Walz. Not only was the guy like is run like the most gayest state in America, this guy's literally has allowed Minnesota to be turned into Somalia 2.0. That place is run with these Somalian pirates that basically come over there and take over the land. They run that land right now, for the most part. Like I don't even think they even run. I don't even think they run Minnesota. Like, bro, that's insane to me. To allow this to happen. This is a post from the New York Times. This is from Trump, says he moves to end temporary protected status for Somalians. About 700 Somalian immigrants are currently allowed to live and work in the United States under a program for people fleeing countries in turmoil. President Trump, it has yet to be seen if this is even going to be serious or not. So let me give a disclaimer. Don't get your hopes up. We've been promised this a lot of times. You do not need to fall for this shit again. Remember this. Hold the fort. He always says this stuff whenever the going gets bad. He always tugs along with the racists and then to try to get the Somalians deported. Remember, Trump can tag us along with that and get and offer us a good time, pause. But hey, they're just teasing you at the end of the day, man. Nothing's really gonna happen. They're just playing with your emotions. President Trump intends to strip hundreds of Somalians living in the United States of the protected status they have had for decades under a program for immigrants from countries in crisis. Mr. Trump specifically targets Somalians in Minnesota in a social media post on Friday, writing that he was terminating their eligibility for the temporary protected status program. More Somalians live in Minnesota than any other state. Chrissy Nolan, the Homeland Security Secretary, said in Minneapolis on Sunday that her office will evaluate whether to end protection for Somalians under the program. Doing so would require given 60 days notice. Ms. Noem suggested that if the status was revoked, the change would apply to Somalian immigrants across the country and not just in Minnesota. Ilhan Omar is in trouble too as well, that means. And plus, she's in trouble in other ways too because she married her brother to gain her citizenship, which is incest is illegal. And first off, yeah, that's marriage fraud. So that is grounds for deportations. And just because she has a position in the government doesn't mean that she still cannot be deported. So, go on some X-Post, breaking news. Trump, U.S. Treasury launches an investigation in Minnesota Gov. Tim Walz for allegedly mishandling taxpayer funds. This is from Leading Report. This is from Treasury Secretary Scott Basson. Basson. At my direction, U.S. Treasury is investigating allegations that under the freckless mismanagement of the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz, hardworking Minnesotans' tax dollars may have been diverted to the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab. Thanks to the leadership of the President of the United States, real Donald Trump, we are acting fast to ensure Americans' taxes are not, I'm reading this without my glasses, are not funded acts of global terror. We will share our findings as our investigation continues. So that's him announcing this on social media, as the article also went over this. This is from Benny Johnson right here. Can you believe the Democrats really looked at Tim Walz and said, yeah, he make a great for vice president. He can't even manage his own state without massive fraud running rampant. Just look at some of what's been uncovered under his watch. 250 to 300 million stolen through feeding our future vile fake meal sites and shell companies. Hundreds of millions stolen from Medicaid through fraudulent autism claims in the Somalian community. 14 million from autism therapy, EIDBI billed for services never provided. 7.2 million in Pest Stop 66 Medicaid fraud for non-existent home health services. 500K plus from Medicaid and Minnesota home health care for undocumented, unattained care. 15 million from private insurers via overbilled neurofeedback therapy. 5.6 million for Medicaid for undelivered substance abuse treatment at Evergreen Recovery. 211K, 85K paid from ARM's mental health program for fake therapy sections. 100 million plus stolen annually through housing substation services. Stabilization. Again, I'm reading this without my glasses. Stabilization services, SNAP eligibility, security checks never performed. 6 out of 8 of the above have ties to Minnesota's Somali community. There isn't a mistake or oversight. It's a criminal level mismanagement. Hundreds of millions, potentially billions stolen, systems abused, and a governor who does nothing. Tim Walz is a complete fraud. Benny going in on him right now. So this is from Jesse Waters.
Somalian pirates robbed us for $1 billion.
According to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership.
This was the biggest COVID scam in American history.
A nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claim to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children. In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya.
Somalis were stealing your money right under Tim Walz's nose. And this didn't come out of the blue. There were red flags and whistleblowers, but the Somalis played the race card. They said they'd sue and go to the press if the funds didn't come through. This was right after the Floyd riots. Walz didn't want the racial heat. Minnesota Democrats also didn't want to tick off one of their most powerful voting blocs. We've been importing thousands of Somalians into Minnesota for decades, and they've been feasting on Minnesota's welfare programs. Now they're political heavyweights. So when government whistleblowers told Walz what was happening, he tried shutting them up, they say. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. So Walz had a COVID snitch line, but when someone snitched on the Somalis, he hung up the phone. This should have been the biggest story of the election. Kamala's VP pick led his state.
Imagine letting this guy be your vice president of the United States, bro. An actual literal criminal. Was running to be the vice president of the United States. Wow. Not only this guy is like just lame as hell, lied about his deployment as a soldier, and now he's a thief. Like, this guy's all around L's right now. Literally, all around L's. This was running to be the vice president of the United States. Like, how embarrassing this guy is already, to where he's allowing Somalians to get high chunks of money, stealing it from Americans, while they're getting all their needs taken care of. Americans are out here dying and could use that money and need that for their services, for their health care. Even though these Somalians come here and abuse the healthcare system because they go to the fucking hospital for every little fucking thing. That's why our healthcare is so fucking high. Yeah, what do they say? We need to deport these people back to their country. We need to deport them right now.
Get fleeced. Waltz even gave one of the Somalis a trophy before she was arrested, the Outstanding Refugee Award.
Really?
That's enough to sink a campaign, but Kamala still picked them. Government whistleblowers say they warned Kamala and the DNC about it also. Now, Tim Walz says, don't blame the Somalis.
It's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals.
Getting scammed isn't generous. It's stupid. And if Somalians are behind it, we're going to blame them.
We do not blame the lawlessness of an individual on a whole community.
Yeah, she's going back too as well.
That's not what Elon said about white Republicans. She thinks we should all be locked up over J6. We're not giving Somalis a pass just because they're black. We're just sick of getting ripped off.
Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely. Sure.
He called Tim Walz a retard. That's actually pretty funny when he said that. That's actually pretty funny. He actually went on Meet the. So we're gonna hold on. Let's go down right quick in the article, because he did go on Meet the Press and said some stuff about Trump. It's kind of funny. Where's that part right? Okay, here it is. In a June 2024 audit, that office found that the Minnesota Department of Education had created opportunities for fraud and maintained inadequate oversight during a roughly 2-year period. It was paying for a fake feeding of school children. President Trump slammed Minnesota as effectively a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity after recent reports on the extent of the Feeding Our Future scheme. Walz has boasted he took responsibility for putting people in jail who were connected to fraud, but also hit Trump in comments to NBC News Meet the Press that there's a big difference between fraud and corruption. And corruption is something he knows about, Minnesota governor said of the 47th president. Donald Trump deflect, demonize, come up with no solutions. He's not going to help fix anything on fraud, Walz told NBC News Meet the Press in an interview that aired Sunday. My God, there's a big difference between fraud and corruption. How that comes around. And corruption is something he knows about. Oh, just like you know a little bit about that too, Timmy. The 61-year-old governor, who is currently running for a third term in office, told the Minnesota Reformer that he was aware of suspicious activity by the nonprofit as early as November 2020. Minnesota's Department of Education first moved to stop payments to Feeding Our Future at the time. So this is that hold on, wrong one. This is that interview right here.
Welcome back, and joining me now is Democratic Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Governor Walz, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Thanks you so much for being here. I do want to start with the tragic shooting of the 2 National Guard service members. In the aftermath of the shooting, as you know, President Trump has responded by vowing to crack down on refugees, including from countries beyond Afghanistan, specifically targeting the Somali community in your home state. He also described you using a slur widely regarded as derogatory toward people with intellectual disabilities. I want to read for you what he said, Governor, and get your reaction on the other side. He said hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope they'll be left alone. The seriously blank governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both. What is your response to President Trump, Governor?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me express my condolences to the families of the National Guardsmen. They're out there doing their duty. They serve us. As a commander-in-chief of the National Guard and someone who served, we have a responsibility to put them in a position where they're protected and they have a clear mission. And so I would express my condolences there. Look, Donald Trump insulting me is a badge of honor for me, but I think we all know, both as an educator for a couple decades and as a parent, using that term is just so damaging. It's hurtful. We have fought 3 decades to get this out of our schools. Kids know better than to use it. But look, this is what Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language. And mainly, look, at first, I think it's just because he's not a good human being. But secondly, to distract from his incompetency. We know we just came through a Thanksgiving where prices are up. We know people are concerned about heating their homes as we're experiencing blizzards out here at the same time he's cutting those programs. So, look, we cannot allow this to be normalized. The people who, Trump is, like, this is language police. You guys are woke. Many times it's just about being decent to people and making them feel included. You can use that word, sure, you can use that language, but you shouldn't. And that's something that Donald Trump fails to realize. But again, Kristen, this is cruelness, this is meanness, it's aimed at a broader community. And as far as demonizing our Somali community, maybe he could help us on some things. Demonizing an entire community, folks who are in the professions, educators, artists, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, they bring the diversity and the energy to a place like Minnesota. And for him to just randomly decide to do this, it makes no sense. Do your job, get the criminals out, secure our border, but do it with dignity and respect.
This is funny coming from him.
Respecting immigrants and refugees as a beacon of hope.
Well, speaking of the Somali community, President Trump is targeting them and your state in part. He's citing fraud as the reason for his crackdown. Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy. And as you heard Senator Kelly say, this president has cut a lot of inspector generals. He's cut programs that could help us tackle this on. So we'll take it on. We'll put folks in jail. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your religion is, your color. If you're committing crimes, these are programs that were meant to serve students with autism, to housing, and to making sure people had enough to eat. There's a reason Minnesota ranks as the top, lowest childhood poverty, best place for children to live. People are taking advantage of that. They're going to prison. That is totally disconnected with demonizing an entire group of people who came here fleeing civil war and created a vibrant community that makes Minnesota and this country better. But that's Donald Trump. Deflect, demonize, come up with no solutions. He's not going to help fix anything on fraud. My God, there's a big difference between fraud and corruption is something he knows about.
Well, Governor, let me have you weigh in on this, because part of your initial response to President Trump's post was to call for him to release the results of his MRI. And I want to give you a chance to give our viewers exactly a sense of what you mean. What exactly were you suggesting by that, Governor?
Well, here we got a guy on Thanksgiving where we spent time with our families, we ate, we played Yahtzee, we cheered for football or whatever. This guy is apparently in a room ranting about everything else. This is not normal behavior. It is not healthy. And presidents throughout time have released a couple things. They've released their tax returns, not Donald Trump, and they've released their medical records, not Donald Trump. And look, the MRI is one thing, but I think what's most concerning about this is, as your viewers out there are listening, has anyone in the history of the world ever have an MRI assigned to them and have no idea what it was for, as he says? So look, it's clear the president's fading physically. I think the mental capacity, again, ranting, crazily at midnight on Thanksgiving about everything else. There's reasons for us to be concerned. This is a guy that randomly says the airspace over Venezuela is closed. He's ruminating on if you could win a nuclear war. Look, this is a serious position. It's the most powerful position in the world.
We're going to touch up on Venezuela next. Well, I don't think Tim's got any room to talk right now, quite frankly, because like he's got a fraud case. This guy might be having to pay back all the money that he's stealing away from the American people or face jail time. Quite frankly, I think the latter should happen to this guy. He should face some jail time and do some community service and still pay back the money, of course.
We have someone at midnight throwing around slurs that demonize our children. At the same time, he's not solving any of the problems. So I'm deeply concerned that he is incapable of doing the job.
Governor, a couple more to get to here. I want to talk about the Democrats. You were, of course, the Democratic vice presidential nominee in 2024 because President Biden dropped out over concerns about his fitness for office. Vice President Harris, in her new book, said it was, quote, recklessness for former President Biden's allies to leave the decision about running for re-election up to him and his family. Do you agree with her? Was it recklessness?
Look, I wasn't there, Kristen, on this, and I think the president, again, got us through COVID, ushered us through, brought the economy back from the edge. I think there's question about this, and I want to be very clear on me talking about the MRI. Ageism is a real thing. Ableism is a real thing that we need to be careful of with people, and I think Donald Trump made a cottage industry out of attacking Joe Biden's competency, and it seemed like that got reported a lot. Now, whether that decision should have been made sooner, history will determine that. What I do know is that going forward, we need somebody in office who's actually going to tackle the things Americans need, whether it's about costs or whether it's about our national security needs and honoring those with our allies. And I think maybe there's a lesson to be learned from what happened with President Biden. If that's the case, it should certainly be applied right now to this president who is putting Americans at risk, is reckless, and is not doing what he's asked to do, make life better for the American people.
All right, let me turn to the future. Former Vice President Kamala Harris has left the door open to potentially run for office again. Do you still think she's the strongest person to run for president in 2028?
Well, I'm glad she's out there, and I'm glad a whole lot of other people are out there, because I think Donald Trump sucks up so much oxygen. We need to have the Democratic Party out on the field, the broad, inclusive Democratic Party, talking about making life more affordable, talking about protecting freedoms. And I think Kamala Harris does a wonderful job with that. If she chooses to run, that betters all of us. We will have the process. We'll go through. I'm sure there'll be a lot of folks throw their hat into the ring, but that's good. And we need to make sure that we're providing the alternative that America's asking for. If they're going to elect us, we need to make sure healthcare costs come down. We need to make sure prices come down. We need to make sure that we're addressing the things that they care about, whether it's clean water or protecting environment. Those are things they want to see us get done. And I think she had a message last year that I'm proud of. I think, did it break through enough? Obviously not, but it's still a message that works, making sure that America is affordable for all, people feel included, and we tackle the toughest problems.
All right, Governor Walz, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
So that's the Tim Walz interview that he conducted that was mentioned in that article. So now as we go over here to Village and Fox.
Does everyone remember when then vice presidential candidate Tim Walz told us that he'd become friends with school shooters? Take a listen, just in case you've forgotten.
I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it.
Well, Tim Walz's friendship circle apparently extends beyond school shooters. This in from the Gateway Pundit today. Minnesota scandal explodes. Over 480 DHS employees accuse Governor Tim Walz of all.
Not gonna lie, I kind of don't like her voice. She talks annoying as fuck. Anyways, here you go. Great news. The ex-account of Tim Walz's own government employees back from a suspension after getting millions of views exposing Walz's role in rampant Somali fraud statewide. Suspension lifted. Walz must be exposed relentlessly. This is the account he's talking right down here. Minnesota staff fraud reporting commentary. In the last 48 hours, we received numerous threats that left us wondering what we could safely post. We foreshadow something. Let me share this real quick. Bring more awareness to this. Yep, as you can see right here, this is the post right here, and this is the other one that they post that up. They wrote themselves a paragraph. But yeah, this is them. This is the account right here that's the whistleblower that exposed the fraudulent schemes that are going on by Tim Walz and his cabinet members over there in Minnesota. So you can see right over here. We'll go over here to this video. After bombshell post over the weekend by Minnesota DHS, whistleblower employees who said Tim Walz was 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota, that he retaliated when they tried to expose it. No one Minnesota media, I guess that's what the MN stands for, headline our story about the post. Not one Minnesota media has covered this. Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Wow. Not one Minnesota media did cover this. You can see right over here, Minnesota Somalian fraud bombshell. Hundreds of millions in taxpayer-funded fraud are being laundered overseas through Alola, I believe I pronounced that right, networks, as Minnesota's Somalian community braces for massive U.S. Treasury federal raids. Put it down, of course, at the bottom. Nick Sorter is over here. Holy crap. Caroline Levitt just absolutely torched Tim Walz in the Somalian invasion of Minnesota. Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. 59 Somalians have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayer. A nonprofit and its affiliates with the Somalian migrants claim to have fled tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all their meals were never even delivered to hungry children. Those organizations' leaders spent the money on house, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya. Reprehensible. Start denaturalizing and deporting these people. We're done. I agree 100%. So go into this video. Well, pretty time. I've got to push for time, so gonna probably go ahead and skip ahead with this one. So pretty much we already covered what we need to cover from this one. All you need to know is Tim Walz is pretty much cooked right now. He is facing serious charges right now, and he's possibly going to jail. So as you can see right over here, penalties for welfare fraud vary by state and the severity of the offense, but can include fines, jail, or prison time, and restitution to repay the government. Offenders may also be disqualified from receiving benefits in the future, sometimes permanently. Financial penalties, restitution. You will likely be required to pay back the benefits you receive fraudulently. Most likely what Tim Walz is facing right there. That and the fines, of course. Fines could be ranged from a few $100s for minor offenses to thousands of dollars for felonies. This is going to probably be upwards to at least about double-digit thousands at best. Civil monetary penalties. Depending on the program, these can be levied in addition to criminal charges. And of course, the downhill legal and administrative penalties, jail or prison time, probation, disqualification of benefits. Yeah, Tim Walz is facing a lot of this stuff, right? This is exactly what he's facing right here. This is exactly what he's facing right here. Like, to steal from the people of Minnesota and give it to like an immigrant community is coming over there and just basically taking over Minnesota and running it like it's Somalia 2.0 is just despicable and disgusting. It's really disgusting. And yeah, and whatever happens, these people deserve to be deported, and Tim Walz deserves to go to prison. He needs to pay back all the money that he's stolen from American people. So, we move on to our final story tonight. We are covering Venezuela. Here for this one. So now everyone wants to go in. We've already talked about Venezuela. I've talked about it twice on the channel. Right now, we have an impending war coming with Venezuela very soon. And as many people might believe or perceive the war to be, is a war of basically regime change, as what I said last time. And as clear as day, Venezuela does not want this war. They do not want to fight the United States at all. And quite frankly, from my perspective, the United States should not be committing to regime changes in Venezuela, because quite frankly, it's going to be very costly, and it's going to cost American lives more than anything. So again, I said before, I am for America to wage war on drug trafficking, but Venezuela does not have manufactured drugs at all, quite frankly, little to none. I've said this before. Fentanyl does not even come, it's not even made in Venezuela. If it is, it's probably very small amounts. If it is, I checked this, fact checked this last time, it was not. So that's made mostly in like the Middle East. I think fentanyl, the highest fentanyl rate, let me see, hold on one second. Yep, mainly, of course, like I've said before, mainly in Mexico, for sure. I wanted to make sure if I said it. Mainly, which illicit supply primarily produced in Mexico using sorry, I was choking right there for a minute. Shit. So pretty much right here. So pretty much it's primarily produced in Mexico. Literally, it says right there, primarily produced in Mexico. Precursor chemicals sourced largely from China. So that just goes to show you right there exactly where is most of the fentanyl coming from, because like the United States wants to wage war on the fentanyl that's coming in and killing American citizens. Most of the fentanyl does not come from Venezuela. As a matter of fact, none of the drugs in that region come from Venezuela. They come from the surrounding areas. Say Colombia is the biggest cocaine hub in Central South America. It's the biggest one of them all. And as far as all the other drugs, like especially like fentanyl, that comes through Mexico. Our best stuff is to go and tackle the cartel in Mexico. So, but this is more than just the United States just going after, you know, the Maduro regime for drug trafficking, which is basically not true at all. The cartel of Sons, which is not even a real cartel, quite frankly, that's just a false made-up cartel. That's just basically high-ranking members in the Venezuelan military that they've dubbed a cartel, even though, yes, they do have history of corruption in Venezuela. That's without doubt. But this is very little waste of time and resources. And quite frankly, this is just not a war we should be fighting. If we want to wage war on the drug cartels, we should be going to Mexico and dealing with them. We should be working with the Mexican government to rid ourselves of the cartels who are bringing the fentanyl into the country that are killing American citizens. But apparently we're not doing it. We're wasting time on this regime change war, mainly because of Venezuela's ties to China, Iran, and Russia. They want a regime in there that's not going to play ball with our enemies. They want a regime in there that's going to be a recipient to America. That's what Maria Corona Machado, who ran against Maduro in 2024, Maduro won the election. Basically, he won the election by stealing it. Of course, many news reports did the reports. They did all the research. They did all the journalism, and they found that the 2024 election in Venezuela was stolen by Maduro. Marina Corona Machado was supposed to be the Venezuela president. Of course, she wasn't. Instead, afterwards, Maduro took power, and then he also called for her arrest and exile. Now she's been in hiding, of course. She's not made it clear where her location is at because she did not want Maduro's regime to find her and arrest her, possibly. God knows what else she's going to do. She's probably going to be kicked out of the country like Guaido was kicked out of the country, and now he's in America teaching at some college in Florida. So that's the predicament that Venezuela's faced right now with this impending conflict with the United States, which Trump has been aggressively telling the media every day now. His rhetoric towards Venezuela has been getting worse. And then him and Maduro has spoken on the phone. That still has not quelled this problem whatsoever. So we don't know exactly when this is going to happen, when we're going to go and attack Venezuela. We don't know when this is going to happen. This could happen literally tomorrow. It could happen any day right now. So let's go ahead and jump into this. This is by Al Jazeera, Trump, Venezuela, and the new Cold War with China.
When it comes to the art of diplomacy, there's a number of ways countries talk to each other. There's economic diplomacy. For example, I give you money and you give me oil. You know what I mean. Cultural diplomacy. I give you Louis Armstrong playing jazz at the pyramids and you let me move this oil through your canal. And then there's this.
Another lethal blow against suspected drug traffickers.
The U.S. striking another alleged drug vessel in the waters off Venezuela.
Gunboat diplomacy. Give me your oil or else.
Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil.
This is how the U.S. has dealt with Venezuela for decades. But Donald Trump has turned that dial way up. It started with missile strikes on speedboats, then an aircraft carrier moved into the Caribbean. U.S. troops deployed in Panama, and CIA operatives were sent to Caracas. President Trump says it's a war on drugs. That Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro, is a so-called narco-terrorist who's flooding the U.S. with cocaine, mass violence, and sex trafficking. But it's starting to look like a war on Venezuela.
Millones de campesinos y campesinas estén preparados para tomar las armas y defender la República Bolivariana de Venezuela.
So is this really about narcotics?
Venezuela's not involved in the drug trade because the UN says they're not involved in the UN. The UN, I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they're talking about.
Is it even about Venezuela or something else, like China and its growing influence in Latin America?
Maduro offered us a dominant stake in Venezuela's oil, gold, and mineral wealth and promised to cut ties with Russia and China.
So how far is Trump willing to go? And will China back down? I'm Mohammed Hassan, and this is Pinch Point, where politics and geography collide. Let's play a game. Can you guess who does the most trade with these countries in Latin America? The US or China? Let's start with Brazil. Answer, China. What about Mexico? Answer, the US. Chile, China. Peru, China. Argentina, China. As you go across the region, it's clear that China has been making big moves. In the last few years, China's become South America's biggest trade partner, usurping a role the US has fought to maintain for more than 200 years. And it's always been very protective of that role. All the way back in 1823, US President James Monroe issued the Monroe Doctrine, a warning to European powers to abandon their colonial pursuits in the Western Hemisphere. Then in 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt amended that doctrine, giving the United States power to intervene militarily in Latin American countries. The Roosevelt corollary kick-started America's view of itself as world police, and over the next century began to flex its growing military power. In the 20th century alone, it sent its armed forces to Peru, Nicaragua, Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala. It occupied parts of Haiti, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Panama, Colombia, and it helped overthrow governments in Argentina, Chile, El Salvador, Bolivia, Brazil. Honestly, it's easier to name a country that wasn't shaped by US intervention, maybe Costa Rica. Whenever a country got too cozy with a rival, Team USA stepped in to protect its interests, which throughout the 20th century can be summed up in one word: oil. And sitting at the top of this region is a country with more proven oil reserves than anywhere else in the world: Venezuela. Back in the day, the two countries were pretty friendly, and US companies had unchallenged access to Venezuelan oil fields. But that all changed in 1999, when a revolutionary socialist government led by Hugo Chavez seized power. Fiercely anti-American, Chavez focused on building closer ties with Iran, Russia, and China, and keeping Venezuelan oil firmly under state control. Here's how he described US President George W. Bush in 2006 following his invasion of Iraq.
Para decírtelo en mi mal inglés, en mi bad English, you are a donkey, Mr. Danger. You are a donkey, Mr. Bush. Si algún día se te va a ocurrir la locura de invadir Venezuela, te espero en esta sabana, Mr. Danger. Come on here, Mr. Danger.
So yeah, not a fan. The root of this tension came from Chavez's belief that the US had tried everything they could to topple him, starting with an attempted coup in 2002 where he was detained for 48 hours, to an alleged assassination attempt in 2005, to his accusation that US aid was funding opposition parties. When Chavez died and his deputy, Nicolas Maduro, took over in 2013, the US placed heavy sanctions on Venezuela, labeling it as a threat to national security. It said that Chavez and Maduro secretly fronted an international cartel called Cartel de los Soles and used the army to facilitate drug trafficking to keep themselves in power. But does this cartel even exist? There's not much evidence to prove it. According to UN data, most of the drugs that are flowing through Venezuela don't end up in the US, and mostly goes to Europe. For example, if you look at where cocaine is produced and transported into the US, it's being made in Colombia and Peru and transported through Mexico. In other words, it's the US's allies who are most responsible for its drug problems. Here's the thing though, throughout this whole ordeal, Venezuela never stopped selling oil to the US. Why?
Because of the strong economic ties between Venezuela and the United States, including the refineries in the Gulf Coast of the United States that were dependent on receiving Venezuelan crude, which is a very specific type of crude, and the refineries were designed to process that very specific type of Venezuelan crude.
Whenever it needed access to crude, the US quietly gave licenses to American companies like Chevron, allowing them to bypass sanctions. Until 2023, the US was buying half of all Venezuela's oil exports, but Venezuela was also looking elsewhere for trade. And this is where China comes in. Back in 2001, China needed large amounts of crude oil to fuel its modernization project, and Hugo Chavez needed a buyer who wasn't threatening to impose sanctions. That year, Venezuela became the first Hispanic country to sign a major trade deal with China. A year later, the US tried to overthrow Chavez in a coup, and like I said, failed. The US increasingly saw Venezuela as part of a so-called troika of tyranny with Cuba and Nicaragua, socialist governments with strong ties to China and Russia, and therefore threats to its interests in the region. But the more the US tried to isolate Venezuela, the more China stepped in to fill the gap. It gave Venezuela more than $60 billion in state loans for housing projects and helped it build railways and ports. Its cargo ships figured out how to bypass US sanctions too, by turning their transponders off in Venezuelan waters. For Venezuela, crippled by corruption and a currency in freefall, China became a lifeline. For China, Venezuela became its entry point into Latin America and a key transport hub for its Belt and Road Initiative. Since then, China began to expand its influence really quickly. In Panama, it built bridges, high-speed rail, and ports along the Panama Canal. It's investing heavily in the so-called lithium triangle, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, countries rich in the mineral vital for China's growing electric car industry. More than 20 Latin American countries have signed up for the Belt and Road Initiative, most recently, Colombia. In 2024, China signed free trade deals with Chile, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Nicaragua, and Peru. And in May 2025, hosted regional leaders in Beijing, announcing a $9 billion investment line of credit. But by far, its biggest partnership in the region has been with Brazil, a key member of the BRICS economic alliance of 10 countries. The expanding economic partnership wants a new currency for international trade, much to the horror of the US. And while Brazil has downplayed this in recent months, it's made it clear it doesn't want to be, quote, fully dependent on the dollar.
You wouldn't have the dollar as your currency anymore. You wouldn't have a world domination by the dollar if I didn't win this election. BRICS was an attack on the dollar.
When Donald Trump first took office in 2016, he had China in his scopes, accusing it of taking advantage of US weakness on the world stage and promoting the spread of drugs past its borders. He then hyped sanctions on Venezuela and fostered ties with right-wing leaders in Brazil, Argentina, and El Salvador. When Joe Biden replaced him in 2020, containing China's rapid growth was high on his agenda. But despite his attempts at limiting its access to vital minerals and semiconductors, the regional shift was only going in one direction. Probably the most telling moment was in November 2024, during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in Peru. President Joe Biden had gone to reassert the close ties between neighbors in the Americas, but during the forum, China inaugurated a $3.5 billion deep-water megaport just outside the capital Lima. During a group photo to conclude the summit, China's Xi Jinping was placed front and center, right next to Peru's president. And Biden was, well, all the way back here. Ouch. By the time Trump returned to office in 2025, he was convinced something more drastic had to be done. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had long advocated for a more hawkish approach in Latin America and believed the spread of China and its socialist influences was the primary threat to US interests.
The Communist Party of China leads PRC, is the most potent.
I will talk about the Afghan national too that shot the 2 National Guards tomorrow as well. I'll do that like in between me reacting to the debate and then the documentary. So I forgot about covering that too. That was the 4th story I was going to add to this, but it's like this is already going to be a long segment, you know, the Venezuela part. So I had to trim it down just a little bit.
and dangerous near-peer adversary this nation has ever confronted. They have elements that the Soviet Union never possessed. They are a technological adversary and competitor, an industrial competitor, an economic competitor, a geopolitical competitor, a scientific competitor now, in every realm. The Chinese believe that the United States are a great power in inevitable decline, and that they are an inevitable rise.
Rubio began his tenure with a long tour of the region, the first time a U.S. Secretary of State had done this since 1912, making it clear that Trump's America First policy.
I did a correction before, because I remember I did say this before in the last episode that Rubio comes from Venezuela. Like, he comes from Cuba. His family's from Cuba. So that's a correction on my part. You know, there I go, me being racist and stuff. I think I did give a correction the stream afterwards, but I just want to give that correction again, just in case someone go back and see that video and said that, oh, I said he's from Venezuela. Again, I made a mistake. You know, all these South and Central Americans, they all look kind of the same to me.
Was also an America's first policy, and that he expected his neighbors to reciprocate. Their first target was Panama.
And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Panama's government hit back, saying its canal wasn't up for grabs, and that it wanted no part in the U.S. China rivalry. But just 2 weeks later, it was forced to drop out of the Belt and Road Initiative and allow U.S. investment company BlackRock to acquire the Panama Ports Company, which China is now trying to block with its own bid. Then in April, the U.S. deployed troops near the canal for military training exercises, and the message couldn't be more obvious.
China did not build this canal. China does not operate this canal. And China will not weaponize this canal.
In July, the U.S. slapped a 40% tariff on Brazilian goods in response to the jailing of the country's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, a Trump ally and a vocal critic of China. In September, Rubio placed visa restrictions on Central American nationals accused of acting on behalf of the Chinese government, which he said was a corrupt influence on the region. And then there's Argentina. President Javier Milei had publicly rejected an offer to join BRICS in 2023, vying for closer ties to the U.S. But facing an economic crisis and spiraling inflation, he accepted a $5 billion currency swap with Beijing in April 2025. By October, the U.S. stepped in, offering Argentina a $20 billion loan, but only if Milei remained in power. Days later, Milei won a landslide election victory.
Argentina, I want to congratulate the victor, and he was a big victor, and he had a lot of help from us.
By now, the U.S. Navy had become a dominant presence in the Caribbean, escalating attacks on boats alleged to be transporting drugs from Venezuela. International drug cartels were designated as terror organizations, and a $50 million bounty was placed on Nicolas Maduro's head.
CIA have authority to take out Maduro? Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela's feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too.
Now, here's what's interesting. In the background of this military escalation, Maduro tried to appease Trump, offering to open up all existing and future oil and gold projects to American companies and reverse the flow of Venezuelan oil exports from China. And initially, the U.S. president considered the offer, but it was Marco Rubio that pushed him to reject it. Rubio firmly believed that the socialist leaders in the region relied on each other politically and economically, and that toppling Maduro would lead to the collapse of Nicaragua and Cuba. Instead, the U.S. could get more favorable trade deals with a capitalist in charge, like Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, who's currently in hiding.
Forget about the Saudis. I mean, we have more oil. I mean, infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources: oil, gas, minerals, land, technology.
On October 6th, the U.S. cut all diplomatic communication with Venezuela, seemingly ending any hope of de-escalating the situation. Maduro had little choice but to plead with Trump in public.
Donald Trump. All right, let me pause this right quick. As you can see right here, this is where all the strikes have taken place at right here. These are all the U.S. strikes on all the suspected drug trafficking boats right here, all around the Caribbean Sea. This is Venezuela right here. This is the strikes right here. That was done on 20/25/10/24, 6 deaths. As I go through the map, 2 deaths right here. That was done on the 10th, 16. That was done on the 9th, 19. Was done on the 10th, 22nd. Done on the 10th, 21st. 11th, 09. This right here is a good map right here that gives you a view of where all the boat strikes have taken place at. All in the Caribbean Sea, all around here. U.S. Virgin Islands right over there, Puerto Rico, of course, Guantanamo Bay, Caribbean Sea. Then over here, you got over here in the Pacific Ocean too as well. In these areas right over here, you have a bunch of these bombs that took place. These were all suspected to be drug trafficking boats. We still don't have no confirmation about that. We still have no idea if they are drug trafficking boats. We still have no confirmation that the administration has not shown us anything right now. They just say these are drug trafficking boats, and Trump has the authority to authorize strikes without Congress's approval, because he can authorize it in case he declares that we are in war. So the president has the authorization to do that if he feels like we are in a conflict with the drug traffickers, which he has publicly already said before. So, but we're gonna go touch up to a new story recently that PKSF is being accused of basically authorizing a second bombing on a boat's location after the boat was already blown up, but there was apparently 2 survivors that survived, and then a second airstrike came back to finish them off. So that apparently is a war crime. You're not allowed to kill people if they survived a boat bombing already. You're not allowed to go back and just blow them in the sea once they're already in the sea swimming or whatever. You're not allowed to go back and order another bombing on them because that is constituted as a war crime. So that's what PDX has been in claim of, but we're going to touch to that story later. But I want to give you guys like a good perspective of like where all these boat bombings have took place at. This is in the Caribbean Sea and on the Pacific Ocean. These are where all the bombings took place. As you can see right here, most of these boats were coming from Colombia, Ecuador, around those areas. They're around next to El Salvador, close to Mexico. It's really kind of hard. Then you got over here the Trinidad and Tobago, right over there. So it's really kind of hard to say where most of these boats coming from Venezuela. Some of them you probably can make the argument, but just like there's so many conflicting reports and saying that most of these come from Trinidad and Tobago. Some come from Colombia. So then we have the testimony from some of the families that sit there and say that none of these guys were drug traffickers. They were just fishermen going out to the fish to catch bait to bring home for the families to eat their food. So it's not a good look on the Trump administration right now. It's very not. So let's get back into it.
Usted tiene que cuidarse, porque Marco Rubio quiere manchar sus manos de sangre, con sangre suramericana, caribeña, con sangre venezolana. Lo quieren llevar a un baño de sangre y que su apellido, Trump, se manche de sangre por los siglos de los siglos.
Backed into a corner, Maduro turned to China and Russia for help. Internal U.S. documents appear to show letters from Maduro to Xi Jinping, asking for expanded military cooperation and radar detection systems. But despite issuing strong statements condemning U.S. military escalations, China seems reluctant to involve itself directly. Having already invested so much into the country, could it now decide to cut its losses?
China did not throw fresh money at Venezuela, right? They were already had loaned Venezuela quite a bit, and Venezuela was already struggling to pay back their loans. Venezuela has defaulted on most of their debt. But Venezuela did start making oil payments to China to service some of that debt.
Even if Trump succeeds with his military aims, it could have lasting repercussions. Trump's MAGA base elected him on an anti-war platform and held him back from escalating a military confrontation with Iran in June. And while Trump made a public display of deporting Venezuelan migrants, the collapse of the government could lead to an unprecedented new wave of migration towards the U.S. border. But most starkly, what this apparent march to war has done is put the whole of Latin America on edge.
It does raise questions. Is the administration planning to take these kinds of actions in other countries where there are foreign terrorist organizations that are involved in drug trafficking? And that includes some of our closest partners in the region, and what the economic and political fallout of that could be. If the U.S. government is going to partners in Latin America and asking them to cut back on the relationship with China, one of the big questions is going to be, well, what is the U.S. government bringing to the table?
As China considers how to protect its interests in the region while avoiding a direct confrontation with its rival, it could decide that its best strategy is to sit back and hope the U.S. is making a terrible mistake.
All right. So that's that is everything that's pretty much giving you like an overview of exactly what is being fought for, what exactly was going on in Venezuela, and what is at stake here. You know, it's more than just a regime change. It's more of like a dominant force of like America flexing its superiority and putting its influence in the region to keep its hold on the Western Hemisphere. That's basically what it is about. So, of course, that is exactly, that is what America's supposed to do as the hegemony superpower. In some cases, you can make that argument. Okay, it might sound a little neoconish, but in some cases, yeah, you will want to keep that superpower and not have China, not have Iran, and not have Russia over there influencing in our regions and digging their nose in our business, basically. And the way I see it right now is like, I'm not for the war. Again, I am for getting rid of the drugs that are coming into America, but it's the wrong country to target right now. It's not Venezuela. It's not the country that we need to be going after. Not at all. I don't know why we even wasting our time even going into Venezuela or even committing to this stuff. But I know why. It's because of their affiliation with China, Russia, and Iran. No, it's about wanting to control their oil reserves. So as it goes on right here, latest 3 strikes on a boat in Pacific kills 3. Southern Command says the United States has carried out at least 21 strikes on boats. The Trump administration accuses of smuggling drugs, killing at least 83 people. This was on November 16th, 2025. So as we go on, the Monroe Doctrine. It's called the Monroe Doctrine. So let me go ahead and bring that up for you guys right quick. You guys exactly what the Monroe Doctrine is. The Monroe Doctrine was a U.S. foreign policy declared in 1823 by President James Monroe that warned European powers against interfering. God, I need to put my glasses on. Interfering with or further colonizing the Western Hemisphere. It established 3 main principles. The Americans were closed to new colonization. The U.S. would not tolerate any European intervention in the affairs of independent nations in the Americans, and in return, the U.S. would not interfere in European affairs. This doctrine has since evolved with later interpretations like the Roosevelt corollary, bro, I can't read this shit. Corollary, allowing for U.S. intervention in Latin America to correct problems. Key aspects of the Monroe Doctrine. Non-colonization stated that the American continents were no longer to be considered subjects for future colonization by any American powers. Non-intervention warned that European powers should not intervene with the affairs of newly independent nations in the Western Hemisphere. Separation of spheres. Establish a clear division between the political affairs of Europe and the Americans. Reciprocal non-involvement in exchange for European non-interference. The United States pledged to stay out of European political affairs. That is the Monroe Doctrine. That's what this article is speaking about when it comes to the Monroe Doctrine. Is they're basically calling this the Don Doctrine. They're calling this the Trump's version of the Monroe Doctrine. Trump bids to control the Western Hemisphere. President Trump is tightening U.S. grip on Americans by rewarding allies and punishing rivals. That has upended the region's politics. The president has opened this year with pledges to seize the Panama Canal, take control of Greenland, and rename the Gulf of Mexico. He is ending by bombing boats from South America, stationing the world's largest aircraft carrier in the Caribbean, and exploiting military options against Venezuela's autocratic leader. So that is exactly what that is, by definition, what the Monroe Doctrine is. But of course, you know, New York Times is just being kind of a little cheeky with this by saying that, calling it the Don Monroe Doctrine. Okay, the Trump administration escalates pressure on Venezuela. The Trump administration on Sunday placed an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean and announced it would designate a Venezuelan group as a foreign terrorist organization. That's okay. We read that in the previous article. Trump ruled out sending troops to Venezuela. President Trump said that he was open to talking with President Nicolas Maduro, but that the United States has to take care of Venezuela as the U.S. builds a military force in the Caribbean. So as we go on, President Trump said on Monday that he would not rule out deploying U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela, but he's also said he was leaving open the possibility of taking, I don't know why I keep saying taking, bruh. I probably should put my glasses on. You can see my glasses right here. But I just like to look handsome for the fucking camera. Possibility of talking to Nicolas Maduro, the country's authoritarian leader and the target of the Trump administration's intensifying pressure campaign. I don't rule out anything. The president told reporters in the Oval Office, we just have to take care of Venezuela. House Democrats press for a vote to bar military action in Venezuela. The effect would invoke the War Powers Act, which repudiates action on measures limiting the president's war-making authority. It faces long odds in the GOP-led House. So the Democrats are trying to prevent this war from happening. and further escalation to take place. A group of House Democrats on Tuesday introduced a measure that would bar President Trump from continuing his military offense against drug cartels without express approval from Congress. So they want to try to take away his power to order these strikes without having Congress approval, because the president can do that. The president is allowed to do it, as I mentioned earlier. He has the ability to do so if he feels like we are in conflict with a country. He's able to command the Department of War to commit strikes on possible enemies like narco-terrorists, alleged narco-terrorists. So the measure faces steep odds in the Russian-controlled House, where Republican leaders are likely to throw up procedure obstacles aiming to shield their members from taking a politically fraught vote on whether to restrict Mr. Trump or grant him broad authority for operations. So this was on November 18, 2025. Obviously, nothing has come about that at all since then. Can Venezuela count on any allies to help with the United States attack? American adversaries are unlikely to help President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. Of course, because Russia is busy right now with Ukraine. China is not a good option to get involved, especially after they just came to like a trade deal with the United States, and possibly they're preparing to invade Taiwan. And then you also have to count the fact about Iran. Iran just got done with a 12-day war with Israel, and they're just now regrouping and getting everything situated in their end with their military equipment, just in case another war is to begin between Israel and Iran. So, and that's obviously, and I need to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption case too. I need to cover that too. Trump said to authorize CIA plans for covert action in Venezuela. The president has signed off on impossible operations inside Venezuela, but has also reopened back-channel communications with the government of President Nicolas Maduro. So we go down right here. The largest U.S. aircraft carrier now positioned in the Caribbean. President Trump has approved additional measures to pressure Venezuela and prepare for the possibility of a broader military campaign, according to multiple people briefed on the matter. Mr. Trump has signed off on a CIA plan for covert measures inside Venezuela, operations that could be meant to prepare a battlefield for further action. These people said. At the same time, they said he has authorized a new round of back-channel negotiations that at one point resulted in President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela offering to step down after the delay of a couple of years, a proposal the White House rejected. That is very interesting. So he offered to step down and the White House rejected it. Wow. It's almost like, so we're not getting more information about that at all since then, but that's interesting that where he's offered to step down and the White House said no. I could have sworn this was about taking Maduro out of power, but the United States government is probably feeling that if Maduro gets out of power, that still don't stop anyone else from his regime taking power and just continuing on with the same ideology. So I don't know if it's that or it's just like they want to forcefully remove him from power and possibly have the country turn against Maduro and turn him over to the United States to face prosecution here in America. There's that possibility. So I have no idea. So as we go right here, this is an exclusive. Colombian president says all, not drugs, at the heart of U.S. pressure on Venezuela. This is from the Colombian president who did an interview with CNN. This was 4 days ago.
Let's talk about what's happening near Venezuela. We have seen the U.S. administration going after drug boats. They say we've seen more than 80 people killed. And if it is about drugs, do you think that Colombia could be at risk here?
No, lo que está detrás es lo mismo que está detrás de la guerra de Ucrania.
¿Qué es? Which is?
Petróleo.
Que los americanos van atrás del petróleo. Americans are chasing
Tiene
oil.
que ver con todo lo que he hablado en esta reunión, que a veces tú pues, la coges como un tema ajeno, pero está en el centro de las circunstancias. Entonces, se llama petróleo. Colombia no. Venezuela tiene una de las mayores, o la mayor reserva del mundo en petróleo, hasta ahora pesado, ojo con esa definición, y en Ucrania hay reservas, y en general todas las guerras de este siglo han tenido que ver con el petróleo.
We know President Trump is transactional. You're saying he's going after Venezuela's oil. If that is the case, do you think the United States will strike inside of Venezuela?
No, van a conseguir el petróleo casi gratuito.
¿Por qué?
Es lo que define la anécdota. Trump no está negociando con Maduro en temas de drogas, porque no es tonto, solo hay que mirar los números. Solo por ahí un 4% de la producción de drogas, de cocaína de Colombia, porque no producimos mayormente otras cosas, sale por Venezuela. Solo el margen. La mayor parte está saliendo por el Océano Pacífico, la mayor parte. Entonces, una negociación sobre petróleo. Yo creo que la lógica de Trump es esa misma. No está pensando en la democratización de Venezuela, ni menos en el narcotráfico.
Is Maduro a narco-trafficker? Is he a drug lord? Is he a dictator? And should he be allowed to get on a plane without facing any of the human rights consequences?
El problema de Maduro se llama democracia. Yo lo reconozco así.
Falta de democracia.
Falta de democracia y de diálogo.
Pero you don't see him as a head of a cartel de los soles.
Una investigación colombiana que es independiente del presidente y en años en que yo no he sido presidente.
Pero no lo veo como el jefe del narcotráfico. You don't see him as a head.
Nos muestra una relación del narcotráfico colombiano con Maduro. Nos muestra dos oficiales de alto rango del ejército venezolano ligados al narcotráfico. Pero aquí hemos tenido como 10 que también nos hemos investigado.
So should Maduro be allowed to get on a plane without facing any of the consequences?
Debería y ser juzgado e investigado como cualquiera de nosotros. Pero hasta ahora, en los datos colombianos, no en los de los Estados Unidos, que no conozco, en los datos jurídicos colombianos, no aparece algo que se llama cartel de los soles.
You're saying there's a lack of democracy with Maduro, but you're not saying he's a dictator. ¿Cómo lo define usted? How would you define
El
himself?
problema de Maduro se llama democracia.
¿Solo eso? Just that?
Después, no estoy diciendo que no sea dictador, porque las dictaduras se meten en el concepto.
The cartel de las soles is the cartel of sons. That's the cartel I mentioned earlier. That is not a real cartel. It's actually high-ranking military officials in the Venezuelan army that have been tied to corruption and illegal drug trafficking in Venezuela, of course. So it's not a real cartel, but the United States labeled them as such as the cartel so that they could basically try to bring charges against them. So that's how they would bring charges against Maduro, and also tie him to Tren de Agra, even though he has really little to no affiliation with them at all, besides just like, oh, you do your thing, we do our thing over here. Basically like a agreement to just like, you let us do our thing, we let you do your thing, you're the president, whatever. So that's pretty much it. Like they have an agreement, just not the step on their shoes.
La falta de democracia. Unas más que otras, pero así son. Entonces no me puedes ligar esos dos conceptos que ya yo lo dije. Es falta de democracia.
If you were to give a message to the American people, to the U.S. administration, what would be that message,
Mi
Mr.
mensaje
President?
es el que le dan a todos los miembros de las fuerzas especiales de los Estados Unidos. La función de ustedes, dicen ahí en los juramentos, es luchar contra la opresión. Te voy a mostrar aquí algo que se encontró en una iglesia católica en San Francisco, Estados Unidos, que quiero que miren. Creo que es un poco lo que está pasando ahora.
Explica lo que estamos
Sí,
mirando.
esto está en un vitral de esos que se usan de colores en el vidrio. Y es como un homenaje a los veteranos de los Estados Unidos que ganaron la guerra que llaman contra España, 1898-1902.
It's a weird
Ni
picture.
más ni menos. Casi medio Estados Unidos o medio México, que es Texas, California y otros estados hoy de Estados Unidos que fueron de México y a la fuerza se les quitaron. Puedes ver, la medalla es dos oficiales de los Estados Unidos de una mujer latinoamericana
De rodillas, on her
y
knees.
desnuda. Esto es lo que nosotros criticamos los españoles.
¿Qué está pasando ahora en Estados Unidos? That's happening right
Esto
now in the
pasó en
United
esa
States.
época, digamos, se llama colonización, se llama imperio, se llama humillar a los seres humanos.
What is the message, Mr. President?
Ahora nos está pasando lo mismo.
America is
Pues
oppressing.
tenemos unos
¿Americano
Estados
está
Unidos,
oppresando?
su gobierno,
¿Sí?
tratando de imponernos criterios.
Let me tell you what, Mr. President, what this administration, the White House has said. It said it's not only sanctioned you for your role in the, quote, illicit drug trade, but has also decertified Colombia in its fight against drug trafficking. U.S. Secretary Bresson recently said, I'm going to cite him, since President Gustavo Petro came to power, cocaine production in Colombia has exploited to the highest rate in decades, flooding the United States and poisoning Americans. How do you respond, Mr. President, one, to those sanctions, but also to those words?
Bien, del informe que sacó las Naciones Unidas en su Comisión de Drogas, que es lo que hemos aceptado como oficial, tiene problemas reconocidos por ellos mismos de tipo de manejo de la estadística y estamos en discusión sobre utilizar variables objetivas, no subjetivas. Y es el que ha recogido, le han informado a Trump, yo creo que Trump no ha leído el informe, sino que ciertos amigos de la mafia colombiana, amigos colombianos, políticos, le han transferido a la extrema derecha política republicana de la Florida para que le transmita a Rubio.
The DEA put out a report in March of this year that said 84% of drugs seized in the United States comes from Colombia. I spoke to your Minister of Defense in September in London, and he said this to me, and I'm quoting him, every 40 minutes we destroy a drug laboratory in Colombia. The problem is that drug manufacturing in our country has snowballed, he said, in unexpected outcomes. Why has it snowballed? Speak to that.
Bien, te voy a mostrar un mapa que tiene la base del informe de Naciones Unidas, el Comité de Drogas, que es donde sale la fuente. para tanto para Estados Unidos como para nosotros. ¿Y por qué Trump está engañado? Siempre el primer productor de cocaína del mundo ha sido Colombia, desde que se consume. Entonces no estamos hablando de un cambio. Usar eso como si fuera un cambio es mentira. Pues claro que nosotros sabemos que la mayor parte de la cocaína que se consume en Estados Unidos proviene de Colombia. Esa no es noticia. Y
You
ese
know,
es
it's funny even when the president has to admit that most my country literally is the cocaine hub of South and Central America. Like, I mean, it's just common sense at that point.
es el mayor productor. Incluso no es 100%, como acabas de decir, antes era 100%. Pero los datos muestran unas cosas diferentes. Primero, el consumo de cocaína en Estados Unidos no está aumentando. Se detuvo. No se detuvo por razón nuestra. Se detuvo por razón de la demanda en Estados Unidos. ¿Qué le pasó a Estados Unidos en los últimos años? Está consumiendo desaforadamente fentanilo. Y el consumo de fentanilo ha frenado el crecimiento de la demanda de cocaína.
Entonces, para clarificar, bajo su presidencia, la producción de cocaína no ha crecido. Let me just clarify. Under your presidency,
Ojo con eso. Este cuadro muestra que sí.
right, so,
Pero no a Estados Unidos.
right, not to the United States. Hasn't, yeah.
Ha crecido, pero si ustedes se fijan en este cuadro que es cocaína real, ¿cierto? No potencial, error de Trump. La mayor pendiente, y esto no lo examina Trump, es esta. La mayor pendiente. Esto es el gobierno de Duque. Nos entrega a nosotros 230.000 hectáreas de hoja de coca, cuando eran 140.000. Ahí se produce el disparo de la producción, del cultivo de hoja de coca. ¿Qué es lo que quiere el gobierno de Estados Unidos que yo haga? Yo les digo que no, porque los datos demuestran que la erradicación forzada es ineficaz en la medida que no cuenta con la voluntad de los campesinos. Isa, discúlpame, porque está en mi defensa. El gobierno que más ha incautado cocaína en la historia mundial, desde que se conoce, digamos, es el gobierno de Colombia bajo mi mandato. Tenemos la mayor incautación de cocaína en la historia.
I mean, I wonder whether what you've just told us, what you've just laid out, whether President Trump is listening to what your argument, because the State Department has said that your policies against drug are inefficient and disastrous.
Sí, lo que dice el presidente Trump es contraevidente.
Why doesn't he listen? Why do you think he doesn't? Why do you think he doesn't hear you? ¿Por qué cree que no lo escucha?
Por soberbia. Porque él cree que soy un matón subversivo, terrorista y cosas de ese estilo. Simplemente porque fui militante del M-19 que levantó en Colombia en épocas de hace 34 años la bandera de la democracia.
All right, so go on. Top U.S. Military officer to visit Caribbean as Trump pressures Venezuela. General Dan Kane is making the trip as President Trump is said to have approved plans for covert action in Venezuela. The nation's top military officer on Monday will visit Puerto Rico in one of the several Navy warships dispatched to the Caribbean Sea to combat drug trafficking as the Trump administration weighs the possibility of broader military campaign against Venezuela. The stated reason for the trip by the officer, General Dan Kane, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, is to thank troops ahead of Thanksgiving, sure, according to the two U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the operation details. Around my eyes, killing me. Trump spoke by, this is when Trump spoke to Maduro on the phone. Trump spoke by phone last week with Maduro, Venezuela's leader. They discussed a possible meeting between the two of them, but nothing has been scheduled, and the administration continues to increase military pressure on Venezuela. President Trump spoke by phone last week with Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuela leader, and discussed a possibility meeting between them. Multiple people with knowledge of the matter said, even as the United States continues to threaten military action against Venezuela, the conversation took place last week, late in the week. Two of the people said it included discussion about possible meeting between the two men in the United States. According to people with knowledge of the matter, who were granted anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter publicly, there are no plans at the moment for such a meeting, one of the people said. Okay, so there's no plans right now of a meeting between Trump and Maduro right now, but they have discussed the possibility in the future to probably try to quell a military operation to continue on. But Trump's already authorized the CIA to act, so there's no telling in what capacity would they act. Once the CIA gets involved, you already know regime change is not far behind. So this right here was broke by an exclusive. This was a big one from the Washington Post. So HEXF ordered on a first Caribbean boat strike, officials say killed them all, as two men clung to a stricken burning ship targeted by SEAL Team 6. The Joint Special Operations Commander followed the Defense Secretary's orders to leave no survivors. So I'll read these right here. The longer the U.S. surveillance aircraft followed the boat, the more confident intelligence analysts watching from command center became that the 11 people on the boat were fraying drugs. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive. According to two people with direct knowledge of the operation, the order was to kill everybody. One of them said a missile screamed off of the Trinidad coast, striking the vessel, igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. Excuse me. Two survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander overseeing the September 2nd attack, the opening Slavo in the Trump administration's war on suspected drug traffickers in the White Hemisphere, ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions. Two people familiar with the matter said the two men were blown apart in the water. Hegseth's orders, which has not been previously reported, adds another dimension to the campaign against suspected drug traffickers. Some current and former U.S. officials and law of war experts have said that the Pentagon's lethal campaign, which has killed more than 80 people to date, is unlawful and may expose those who most directly involved to future prosecution. That is, yes. So that what happened right there is constituted as a war crime, if that is what it is. Of course, Hegseth and people familiar with the matter have already denied that Hegseth gave that order to go out there and kill them all. As you could go scroll down right here, it was Frank M. Mitch Bradley told the people secure the survivors were still legitimate targets because they could theoretically call the traffickers to retrieve them and their cargo. According to two people, he ordered the second strike to fulfill Hegseth's directive that everyone must be killed. Okay, so this is right here is a legend that Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley told the people to strike again to ensure that there were no survivors. Later in the day, President Trump released a redacted 29-second surveillance drone video showing the attack. The video does not include any footage of the subsequent strike on the survivors. In weeks leading up to following the attack, the Trump administration notified Congress that the U.S. was in a non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations, supported by the opinion from the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel that asserted that because the U.S. was in armed conflict, the personnel taking part in the military strike who were following orders consistent with the laws of war would not be exposed to prosecution. Okay, so let's see. I know there was already spoken about this. Let's see if I can find that part, because I know there was a denial over here. As a lawyer right here, an attorney for the family, human rights. Yep. So Dan Kovalik, I believe he pronounced his last name, Dan Kovalik, an attorney for the family, said he will file for damages and injunctive relief against the U.S. government next week in conjunction with the international. Okay, so this guy is not the. Okay, I'm trying to see where was the denial at. Maybe it was in a different article I read. I read multiple articles. So I know Hegseth already has denied that he gave this order. Okay, so anyways, let's go over here. This is where CNN, of course, they got to come in already immediately. Try to get their punch in right now. Drive-by attack on the Trump administration.
We're learning new details about one of those deadly U.S. strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean. Sources tell CNN the U.S. military carried out a follow-up strike on September 2nd after becoming aware of survivors in the water. The sources tell us that prior to the strike, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had ordered the military to ensure everyone on board was killed. People briefed on the, quote, double quote, double tap strike, say they're concerned that it could violate the law of armed conflict, which prohibits the execution of an enemy combatant who is taken out of the fight due to injury or surrender. Now, since September, as you're seeing on your screen here, the U.S. military has carried out at least 21 known strikes on suspected drug trafficking boats, killing at least 83 people. Officials have also acknowledged, though, not knowing the identities of everyone on board before they are struck. And this development comes as President Trump says the U.S. military will soon begin land strikes on alleged drug trafficking networks in Venezuela.
About to say what the hell happened. All right, so let me see. That's weird.
Bring in Beth Stanner, a CNN national security analyst and former deputy director of national intelligence. Thank you for taking the time. I just want to start with getting your reaction to the reporting we have here that double tap strikes were ordered to make sure everybody on board was killed.
Right. If this is true, it's really shocking.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about this in the context of Ukraine, and right now Russian soldiers are being accused of war crimes, and their cases in the International Court of Justice because they're killing prisoners, Ukrainian armed combatants who are prisoners, and they're killing them instead of, you know, keeping them as prisoners. So, I mean, here we have an example of an actual war and war crimes accusation. So here, what does this do, you know, in terms of U.S. moral authority? You know, there's reporting this week of Israel of IDF soldiers killing Palestinian prisoners, Hamas prisoners. How can we go to Israel and say, like, you shouldn't have done that? Or Russia?
Yeah.
You know,
this arena has, I mean, we've been talking a lot about Venezuela on a number of fronts. Obviously, there are these efforts that the administration says they're going after drug trafficking boats. There is the not so subtle pushes against Nicolas Maduro that President Trump has been leading. But the president also says that land action would now be part of the administration's effort to deter Venezuelan drug traffickers. I just wonder what you think about that threshold being crossed here.
It's a big threshold, right? I mean, right now we're in international waters, but when you're talking about strikes in a sovereign country against, you know, I mean, these are drug traffickers, bad people, you know, but it is still in another country. And so there usually has to be a justification. And there is a process for that. You can get authorization for use of military force from Congress that helps on that. But there's an entire international legal system too. And that's what people are worried about, you know, kind of in this context of the video that the Democratic senators put out recently about defying illegal orders, and the question about whether people who are conducting them could be subject to, you know, being prosecuted. So I think that there's a lot involved here. I do wonder, though, whether President Trump actually will do it, or whether we're just kind of in this game of chicken. I was thinking about this because he has this quote that he said in another context about, you know, waiting until the very last minute to make a decision about conducting such an activity, because, you know, in war things change. That's the quote. And so, you know, sometimes you know, we don't really know where we're either up to that line of the last minute, or whether we're still in this kind of pressure campaign trying to see if something will happen inside Venezuela, whether this kind of pressure will generate activity to oust Maduro.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of people are looking at, okay, is this all part of an encroachment effort to oust Nicolas Maduro, who President Trump has said his days are numbered? Earlier this week, the president designated Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his government allies as members of a foreign terrorist organization. I just wonder, we've got these individual sort of storylines popping up. What do you see as the bigger picture here? Is the bigger picture to try and get Maduro out of office?
I mean, I think sure. I think, you know, Lindsey Graham has said as much, very close to the president. I think that's where we are. But I don't think that necessarily means that he's willing to use military force directly in terms of trying to do that, whether to snatch him or to kill him. So, you know, again, I think we're going to be in this ratcheting up, and maybe it will entail strikes inside of Venezuela against drug facilities, but that'll be part of a process, again, to see if something will move internally. I think that's the goal.
Yeah. Beth Stanner, always appreciate your insight, especially on a story like this. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Omar.
Of course.
US President Donald Trump appears to be preparing for a new phase of military action against Venezuela that includes taking action on land.
In recent weeks, you've been working to deter Venezuelan drug traffickers, of which there are many. Of course, there aren't too many coming in by sea anymore. People aren't wanting to be delivering by sea. And we'll be starting to stop them by land also. The land is easier, but that's going to start very soon.
Well, that announcement happened just hours after the US sent more military firepower to the region. And Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth paid a visit to the United States' largest aircraft carrier, which was recently moved to Latin America.
Patrol, or whether it's in our nation's hemisphere, out at sea, interdicting cartels, defending the American people, we are grateful for you.
Maduro's message at a military parade on Thursday.
For the last 17 weeks, foreign imperialist forces have been continuously threatening to alter the peace in the Caribbean, in South America, and in Venezuela, under false pretenses and extravagant arguments that no one believes.
CNN's Stefano Pozzebon is joining me now live. So, Stefano, this announcement from Trump appears that he's made a decision on his next plan of action. What's the reaction been like from Venezuela to this?
Yeah, well, I think that Nicolas Maduro's words yesterday, as he was commemorating a failed coup from his predecessor, the late President Hugo Chavez, but again, it was just an occasion for him to portray himself in a position of strength. It's not a coincidence that he was speaking to armed forces, members of the armed military, and especially wearing a green uniform. Well, we've been here before. We've been here for the last 17 weeks. I think that there is, inside Venezuela, a sense of fatigue around all of this military build-up from the United States that never arrives to the actual critical point. Donald Trump might say that conducting operations on the land, which we understand, we intend to believe that would mean inside Venezuelan territory. Well, Donald Trump might say that would be easier. It would be, frankly, much more difficult in terms of coming up with a response to how Maduro would retaliate with that. And this is a game of carrots and sticks that we've been seeing here for the last 4 months. And I think that Maduro and many other people here in Venezuela are still on the edge. And there is a sense of fatigue around that edge because of these geopolitical tensions. We shall see eventually if Donald Trump decides to move forward. A week ago, he was saying that he was open to discussing in person with Nicolas Maduro. We've been hearing rumors that there may have already been a call. We don't understand that is the case, by the way, Christina. We understand that the call between Nicolas Maduro and Donald Trump is yet to happen, if indeed it will eventually happen. But at the same time, Donald Trump once again opening the door to a possible military action inside Venezuela that certainly bode well for the government here.
Yeah, that call been talked about for some time. We'll wait to see if it materializes. Stefano, appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, so as we go on, Trump declares Venezuela airspace closed. So this was reported just 2 days ago. Trump declares Venezuela airspace closed. President Trump said days earlier that the United States could very soon expand its campaign of killing people at sea suspected of drug trafficking to attack Venezuelan territory. President Trump warned airlines implied on Saturday that the airspace near Venezuela was closed, ratcheting up what his administration has characterized as a war against drug cartels. In a post on social media to all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, human traffickers, the president wrote that the airspace above surrounding Venezuela should be considered closed in its entirety. Trump is pretty much just telling them right now, it's like he's just pretty much going in Venezuela and telling them he's running this shit and just telling them like straight up, like your airports are closed right now. You're not allowed to go nowhere. We are coming. We run your shit right now. It's either comply or we come in and we just take it over and we just militarily conquer you. So Mr. Trump did not go further details of his post, but he came after he warned on Thursday night that the United States could very soon expand its attacks on boats thought to be carrying drugs in waters off Venezuela to targets inside the country itself. The U.S. boat strikes have killed more than 80 people since September. So go on right here. This is from Live Now from Fox.
Right now, we do continue to cover some breaking news that is coming in at this hour to our newsroom. President Trump telling airlines this morning to consider the airspace above Venezuela closed. He posted this right here on Truth Social saying, quote, to all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. He adds, of course, thank you for your attention to this matter. The president's comments coming about a week after the Federal Aviation Administration, that's the FAA, warned airlines about flying over Venezuela. The FAA issuing a notice urging airlines to, quote, exercise caution due to the, quote, potentially hazardous situation in that region. Want to pop up one of the live images that we do have right here. This is a live look over the White House. Now, the FAA advisory in part read, quote, operators are advised to exercise caution when operating in the flight information region at all altitudes due to the worsening security situation and heightened military activity in or around Venezuela. It goes on to say, quote, threats could pose a potential risk to aircraft at all altitudes, including during overflight, the arrival and departure phases of flights and or airports and aircraft on the ground. Now, they also requested airlines to provide at least 72-hour advance notice to the FAA if they did plan to fly through that area. Some international airlines then canceled their flights to Venezuela following that warning. Direct flights from U.S. passenger and cargo carriers to Venezuela have been suspended since back in 2019, but Reuters does report that some airlines still fly over the country on their South American routes. I do want to pop up this video on your screen right here because all of the comments, of course, coming as we are getting different video and information here. President Trump and his administration stepping up their strikes on suspected drug cartels in and around Venezuela, saying those strikes are expected to continue. And some of this video here coming from President Trump and the Secretary of Defense and War, Pete Hegseth, releasing the video of several of these strikes. Now, several fatalities have been reported as well. A lot of information here, so we will make sure to keep you updated on Live Now from Fox.
All right. So does it go on right now? Where we at? Okay, so President Trump runs airspace closed down. This is from Fox News right here.
President Trump, meantime, also announcing he intends to pardon former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez.
An investigation into Hernandez actually began during President Trump's first term in office, and back then Hernandez was actually sentenced to 45 years in prison during the Biden administration for allegedly conspiring with drug traffickers to move cocaine.
That's kind of wild that he pardoned Honduras president. That I'm not gonna lie, that is kind of wild that he pardoned the Honduras president, because he actually was a drug trafficker. I don't understand the ideology behind pardoning him at all.
Into the U.S. Some estimates up to 400 tons of it. The president says now he is hoping to move beyond that. Meantime, he's also doubling down on his threats on Venezuela, with the possibility of taking action on drug traffickers on land in that country, and perhaps very soon. In fact, this morning on Truth Social, he warned pilots and traffickers that they should consider the airspace above Venezuela to be closed. I want to bring in Fox contributor and former CIA station chief, the great Dan Hoffman. Dan, I have to say, I'm not surprised the president is attacking it from this perspective. But should we take from what he's done thus far, not just by positioning assets in the region and shutting off airspace, for lack of a better description, does that mean a land offensive is imminent?
It could be. The president also reportedly had a conversation with Maduro in the past few days, and so I think the president might be pursuing a number of options. But look, we've got one of our most advanced aircraft carriers, the USS Gerald Ford, in the region, and lots of military capacity there. If we attack Venezuela on land, that's an act of war. And so I think the president would do well to address the nation. I think that Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio should be engaging with the Congress with oversight, so that the Congress is fully informed of the president's plans and intentions, so that if we do take action, we're in a one team, one fight kind of scenario.
Well, the president said this. I want to play a little sound. He basically laid it out point blank. He's warning drug traffickers, we're coming after you. Listen to this.
We're going to take care of that situation. We're already doing a lot. We've almost stopped. It's about 85% stopped by sea. You probably noticed that. People aren't wanting to be delivering by sea. And we'll be starting to stop them by land also. The land is easier, but that's going to start very soon. We warn them, stop sending poison to our country.
It's one thing to interdict over international waters. It's a whole other can of worms to actually attack a country, especially by way of land and perhaps even by air. You've seen circumstances like this play out before. There's a wide latitude, Chief, as I understand it, when it comes to terrorism. Isn't that right?
There is. This is a little bit different because you're talking about drug traffickers, and that's a bit different than terrorism. But you're right. We have launched attacks against other nations who had harbored terrorists, who had given terrorists sanctuary. But I find that to be a little bit different than the current situation. I think the president would do well to present the evidence that we have to the American people. We're a bit wary, I think, U.S. citizens, of engaging in foreign conflicts. We saw what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, where we didn't have a real clear handle on what our strategic objectives were going in and what were the objectives for us to get out. And so I think that the president would do well to outline that and to have his key cabinet officials provide additional background, perhaps even behind closed doors, but also for full transparency overtly to the American people.
Real quick, I want to get your thoughts on this sound. This is Riley Moore, congressman from the great state of West Virginia, again, discussing the notion that we understand what happened in the catastrophic departure from Afghanistan. A lot of people came here. We didn't really have full vetting. We don't have the systems in that country, quite frankly, to really know who they all are. I want to get the sound and get your reaction about, again, the withdrawal and the risk to America. Listen.
He should have never been in this country to begin with. We had over 80,000 Afghan nationals piled into the United States. We don't know these people. We don't know who they are. This is the first time that I can recall the United States government brought a terrorist into our country.
It is a really strong take, and I think a lot of people feel exactly like he does. Your thoughts, 30 seconds.
Look, I think administrations have to deal with the consequences of their predecessors. We've got a war in Ukraine that began under President Biden's administration. We had the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan for all that entails. Terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS enjoying open field running like they did before 9/11, and the Afghans who came to the United States. To the extent to which they were not vetted or not vetted properly, I'm sorry to say that's now the Trump administration's challenge. They're going to have to figure out a way to do it with Department of Homeland Security and FBI, and then any connections to overseas terrorists, that's over to the intelligence community, CIA primarily.
Yeah, got to get after it. And I think you were really sharp when you said, quite frankly, sometimes vetting is that day's vetting. It doesn't necessarily mean anything moving down the line. You have to stay in contact with these individuals, especially those who are coming back home from the battlefield. Dan Hoffman, thank you as always. I appreciate your time today. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR.
All right, so go on. In announcing pardon of drug traffickers while threatening Venezuela, Trump displays contradictions. President Trump's statement on social media less than 24 hours apart showed the dissonance in his campaign against drug trafficking. President Trump and his top aides have said that the drug cartels represent one of the most pressing dangers to the United States and have promised to eradicate them from the rest of the Union. As part of that effort, Mr. Trump signed on Saturday he was ratcheting up his campaign against drug traffickers. Social media post that airspace have and surrounding Venezuela should be considered closed in its entirety. Less than 24 hours earlier, Mr. Trump has announced on social media that he was granting a full pardon to Juan Orlando Hernandez, a former president of Honduras who had been convicted in the United States of drug trafficking charges in what was seen as a major victory of authorities in a case against a former head of state. The pardon has not yet been officially granted. That is just wild to me, that he pardoned a literal drug trafficker. Like, we're supposed to be on war against narco terrorists, now pardon them. That's wild. The lawmakers just follow up both strikes could be a war crime. Top Republicans have joined Democrats to demand answers about the escalating military actions the Trump administration says is a target of drug traffickers. As top Republican Democrats in Congress suggested on Sunday that American military officials might have committed a war crime in President Trump's office against boats in the Caribbean after news reports said that during one such attack, a follow-up strike was ordered to kill survivors. Yeah, so it seems like to me right now, the escalation right now is only going to get worse right now as time goes on. And as you can see right now, we've gone through the entire timeline of all of November right now. We've already reached the end of November right now, and now they want transparency from Pete Hegseth about these follow-up strikes that apparently killed defenseless men who, quite frankly, didn't have, any indication of they were going to try this again if they are allegedly drug traffickers, because, like, for the most part, we don't know because we don't really have the evidence. They're not showing us nothing. We're just told by the Trump administration that these are drug traffickers and that these boat targets are the target narco terrorists from entering the United States to sell more drugs on the streets of America to kill Americans. So, as you can see right here, we reached the ending point. I'm considering, should we watch Nick's point of view on this? Because Trump threats to strike Venezuela. I'm considering saving this for the next one. So I'll play this at the beginning, and then afterwards we can jump into the debate and the documentary. And then I'll talk a little bit about Netanyahu's corruption case, and I will cover the Afghan national who shot the two National Guardmen. That's what I'm probably gonna do. I'll probably go save this for that one. Save it from here. I'm kind of tired. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, it's 5:58 a.m. So we're gonna stop it right here. Thank you guys for joining me today. God damn, I'm gone. So yeah. So thank you guys for joining me today on this one right now. So we covered pretty much everything. We covered the Venezuela. We've talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've talked about the fraud case against Tim Walz, which he's most likely going down. So we've talked a little bit about everything tonight. So I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Video will be posted tonight at 8 p.m. December the 2nd, 2025. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and I'll see you in the next one.